Good. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. As we've been doing throughout this meeting, after every break, we've been taking a roll call of councillors, and we will do this yet again. So, Laura, may I ask you to do the roll call, please?
Of course, Chair. Councillor Airy.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Allingham.
Yes, here.
Thank you. Councillor Asman.
Present.
Councillor Atkinson.
Present.
Councillor Bearder.
Yes, yep.
Councillor Bicknell.
Present.
Councillor Bourne.
Here.
Councillor Broadhurst.
Present.
Councillor Campbell.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Present.
Councillor Corbyn.
Present.
Councillor Caldry.
Present.
Councillor Craig.
Present.
Councillor Cross.
Present.
Councillor Dean.
Present.
Councillor Doogie.
Present.
Councillor Dogood.
Present.
Councillor Garton.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Gomer.
Present.
Councillor Grajewski.
Present.
Councillor Groves.
Present.
Councillor Holes.
Present.
Councillor House.
Yeah, I'm here.
Councillor Irish.
Present.
Councillor Jerd.
I'm here.
Councillor Curl.
Present.
Councillor Mann.
Present.
Councillor Manning. Councillor Manning. Councillor Marsh.
Present. I can see Councillor Manning on screen, but he was muted.
Yeah, he waved and smiled, mouthed something.
I can see him, it's fine. Councillor Parker-Jones.
Present.
Councillor Pragnall.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Pretty.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Rich.
Present.
Councillor Tennant.
Present.
Councillor Tidridge.
Present.
Councillor Trace.
Here.
Councillor Tyson Payne.
Bringing up the rear as ever.
Thank you. That's the full house, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tyson Payne. Right, we will now hear from those who have registered to participate. We will hear from those who are in support now. We will hear first from those who have registered to speak, followed by videos and any written statements. And those statements will be read again by our officers. Please can I remind speakers to switch off their cameras and microphones once they have finished speaking, and just to remind you all that you have 3 minutes in which to put forward your submission, and you will receive a 30-second warning from our Chief Executive, Nick Tustian. And may I thank you for your patience this evening as well. We will now move to the first speaker, and Tim Hancock. Do we have Tim Hancock here, please?
Good evening, Chairman.
Good evening, Tim. Thank you.
My name is Tim Hancock and I chair Business South's Regeneration Group. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening in support of one of the most important, if not the most important, applications that the Borough Council has ever had to determine. Business South represents over 120 employers in the Central South region, and some of these include the Ageas Ball, the Carnival, Kia, IBM, Beaches, Southampton Football Club, Ordnance Survey, Holiday Inn, Hilton Hotel, Red Funnel, Southwest Trains, Eastern Airways and Fawley Waterside, to name but a few. The objective of Regen South is to support the continued economic success of our region and to attract inward investment. Southampton Airport is a vital asset for local businesses and our regional economy, which is why Business South members overwhelmingly support the airport's planning application. Indeed, the future of the airport has generated more interest and support than any other topic over the last year. Local businesses need convenient and frequent access to regional and international markets to survive, and the regular services that the airport provides are essential for the region's continued success and the economic recovery. Without a local airport, many companies would suffer and the region would be far less attractive to inward investors. The airport is also a major employer, both directly and indirectly, through the many supply chain companies, hospitality and hotel businesses associated with its operation. The airport has been doing a great job to keep going following the collapse of Flybe and the impact of the pandemic, but it has incurred unsustainable losses and needs the support of your council if it is to survive. Put simply, the airport is unviable without a longer runway. If it is to survive, it has to be fit for purpose so that it can attract airlines which operate the latest generation of fuel efficient and lower carbon emission short haul jets. This means a longer runway. The government's recent budget announcement to create a Solent Freeport represents a fantastic opportunity for our region to accelerate the economic recovery. The airport and the adjoining industrial land in Eastleigh, together with the Chicken Hall Link Road, have a vital role in the Freeport proposal, the wider regeneration of brownfield land and job creation. A refusal this evening would put this proposal in serious jeopardy.
30 seconds,
there can be
please.
no doubt that the airport is extremely important to local businesses. Eastleigh Borough Council has a crucial decision to make tonight. A refusal would inevitably lead to a spiral of decline, business closures and job losses, and a major blow to the recovery of the Central South economy. On behalf of the business community, I strongly urge you to follow your officer's recommendation and improve this important application to secure the airport's future survival. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hancock, in taking the time to join us this evening. I'll now move to Dan Coleman. Do I have Mr. Coleman here, please? Do I have Mr. Coleman? Right, okay, so we'll move on. I'll move on now to Nigel Patterson. Mr. Patterson, please, can I invite you into our meeting?
Yes. Right.
Good evening, Mr. Patterson.
Hello. Right, so my 3 minutes is beginning?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So I'm a regular air traveller, not a frequent flyer. I'm a trainer, educator and author. I'm definitely not neutral about the future of the borough, which I think is at stake over this whole matter. I've been with you since 2 o'clock. I really admire what you councillors are doing and your officers are doing. I've been particularly touched by the medical needs of 1 or 2 people whose health has really been affected by being under the flight path. And I do think those individuals do need some further attention. I would argue that this is not just an environmental issue, because the environmental argument is split both ways. We've heard endlessly just one side of the environmental argument today. And obviously dealing with matters such as the flight path, the noise levels, the larger planes. I think many of us would like £1 for every time the A320s have been mentioned today. But this actually ignores the fact that the environmental issues are in many ways passed on by the present situation. People like myself have to go to Heathrow in order to be able to travel. It takes an hour and a half to get there. And then there can be a long queue on the road, a lot of pollution created by cars just waiting to get into the airport. The airport, as well as Gatwick, is dysfunctional. They are working at 95% of capacity in ordinary times. If you're a flyer, you find that your aircraft is going round and round over the top of Heathrow because it is so full. An airport like Southampton could take some of that load. As it is, it doesn't take any of the load. It just shifts it to places like that. And it will make it even worse if Southampton were to be closed. You can't, unfortunately, decide this matter by pacifying disenchanted voters. And I realise you've got quite a lot of us, because this is a complex decision just before the May elections, and you've got large numbers of concerned voters on either side of this, which is really difficult for you. There's clearly a big issue around local employment and the economy. Perhaps 2,000 jobs could be lost if the airport was to close. Perhaps 1,000 or more jobs could be gained if this extension is put through. The operations director in the Echo yesterday is quoted as saying about extension that this is the only way for us to maintain our viability. Well, it may not be in the report, but I think that's rather important evidence for this evening. I suggest, though, this is essentially a question about your vision as councillors for the borough of Eastleigh.
30 seconds, please.
Okay, I would argue especially that with the possibility of Southampton becoming a free port, but it needs an airport, even if that's not fully understood by others. Is the borough just to become a non-entity, a kind of residential suburb beloved by many of the people who've already spoken today? I suggest that the borough's future is jeopardised by a future of the extension if it is not put through. It is not an environmental disaster to build 164 metres of runway. It is what you do with it that matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patterson, for your comments and joining us this evening. I'm now going to invite David Bowen into the meeting. Good evening, Mr. Bowen.
Hello, good evening, Chairman, Councillors and Delegates. I'm a dual legal qualified chartered surveyor living in Bishopstoke and near the airport and flight path. I'm also director of my own construction consultancy business and have been working in the sector for over 38 years now. I'm reliant on the airport for my business. Over the past 14 years, I have used the airport in Eastleigh on a number of occasions for business trips to Manchester, Jersey, Leeds and Aberdeen, working with various clients, including regional airports and local authorities. I have also used the airport for holidays to Spain and the Channel Islands. The time savings and efficiencies from regional air travel are invaluable for business and individuals like myself. Many UK businesses have chosen to base themselves here in Eastleigh because of the excellent access to the airport. As a chartered surveyor, I've worked for 2 regional airports, including Jersey and Manchester, directly assisting them with their expansions. I know firsthand how hard it has been for the air sector. It has barely survived COVID, is still on life support and in a coma. This regional airport, its staff and its customers need our support right now, and we should be helping them to find their feet again to support all the jobs and the well-being of all the individuals that work at the airport. Now is not the time, I believe, to be saying no. This airport is essential to many local Eastleigh residents like myself and to the wider region. If Eastleigh says no to this small airport extension, it is saying no to business, no to growth, no to extra local jobs. That's not the sort of Eastleigh that most residents want to be a part of. Eastleigh has a really exciting future. It is nationally recognised as a strong regional transportation hub with an infrastructure that is second to none. This decision is about the message Eastleigh sends to its residents and to the companies, businesses, organisations throughout the UK. It is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Eastleigh. My hope is that it seizes the day and says yes to residents, yes to the economy, yes to business, yes to growth, and yes to more jobs. Eastleigh does not want to be seen by many as an economic backwater, left behind and stuck in its heritage and past. If it says yes to the expansion, more people and companies will see that Eastleigh is at the forefront of the new economy and is open for business. And more people will choose to live, stay and work in Eastleigh. I'm sure that I speak for many and I support the airport expansion and without any reservation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bowen, and thank you for your contribution this evening. We will now move on to Roger Vivian. Mr. Vivian, are you with us this evening?
Yes, I am with you, but I think you'll see me as Clara Wise for some reason.
Thank you for the clarification.
It's not the weekend yet.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Vivian. Thank you.
Firstly, if I can thank all of you, councillors, and all the other staff involved in this event. It's been a long day for all of you, and I'm sure that you're taking everything into consideration. I'm here to ask you for your support in the runway extension. I've lived in West End for the last 40 years, and I've seen Eastleigh decline. I've seen opportunities missed, but we now have the opportunity to do something which will help the local economy. It will bring back work to the area. They say that the cruise ship industry brings in £1 million a ship per day. What will 2 million passengers bring into Eastleigh, which is the predicted number that will be coming in? I believe that we will see a growth in Eastleigh that will benefit the area. More workers, more passengers, more spending. I actually own a local taxi business, and with the extension improved, I will see that my business will grow as well. I ask that you think about what you do for Eastleigh and you all vote in favour of the extension. It's very difficult when so many people will be saying we shouldn't have it, not at my back door. But I think that we're at a situation where we actually need to look at what's best for Eastleigh, and an extension to Eastleigh Runway will make all the difference. It will actually help the economy. We will grow, we will go stronger, and more people will be travelling less distance. As a taxi driver, a stroke operator, I did the figures. We would normally do 500 trips to Southampton Airport. I do the same number to Gatwick and Heathrow. I'd rather be doing 1,000 trips to Southampton and less trips to Gatwick and Heathrow. It makes common sense, it's good for the economy, it's also good for the environment. And that's all I would like to say, but please think carefully, and I hope that you will vote in favour of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments this evening, Mr. Vivian. I believe now we are able to make contact with Dan Coleman. Good evening, Mr. Coleman. Are you able to join us?
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for coming back round to me. I do appreciate it. So I'll begin by saying yesterday at 11:48 AM I distributed 3 images to the councillors via email. If I could kindly ask the councillors to refer to these images, I will explain an argument from a flight operations perspective as to why the proposed extension is necessary. Since Flybe's collapse, no airline in the UK operate their disused aircraft at large. This is a shame, as the performance characteristics of those aircraft were ideally suited for the operations from Southampton. Most airlines in the UK operate the Boeing 737-800 and the A320 family series. These images sent show the takeoff calculations for a Boeing 737-800 using software that Ryanair used to dispatch their aircraft. In image 1, I have detailed a scenario showing a 737-800 departing Southampton. I've loaded the aircraft to a weight of 63596 kilograms, and that can be seen in the top right of the image. This simulates a full load of passengers and luggage. This figure also includes 7,000 kilograms of fuel, which is enough to reach Barcelona. In the lower left, you'll see temperatures of 15 degrees and a pressure of 1013, and the wind is reading 340 at 04 knots. And this is a light headwind with a small crosswind component. That aside, all in all, it's a very pleasant spring day in norm terms. In the scenario, the aircraft requires 1,723 metres to stop in the case of a rejected takeoff, which is a limiting distance. This figure is visible above the runway graphic as Axel stop on the right-hand side. This weather scenario at this weight uses all the current available runway length in the case of a rejected takeoff. Whilst it is legal from a dispatch perspective, I'm not sure many pilots would be happy to depart with no margin for error on a rejected takeoff. In image 2, I've shown the exact same scenario, but in this example, I've changed the direction of the wind to 290 at 04. This is the same wind speed, but this time the wind is directly across the runway at 90 degrees, a change of 50. It is not abnormal for the wind to veer by 50 degrees throughout the day. Just to quantify, 4 knots is a very light breeze. However, despite this, the aircraft cannot dispatch in this scenario. And note the comment at the bottom that the weight exceeds the maximum allowable takeoff mass of 63100. This means that the aircraft must either offload roughly 7 passengers or 496 kilograms of fuel to allow a departure. We cannot offload fuel as we would not be able to reach the destination, so passenger restrictions would need to be implemented, and this is not an ideal scenario and carries too much risk for an airline. Especially concerning is how narrow the margins are between the go and no-go scenario. Just a moderate change of wind direction stops the departure. Image 3 shows the same scenario as image 2, please. But this time I've selected an arbitrary airport which has a longer runway just to show how much additional runway would be needed. The required runway length in this instance is 1,766 metres. It stands to reason that if the runway at Southampton were extended to 1,887 metres, a dispatch would have been comfortably achievable. By extending the runway at Southampton Airport becomes a viable airport from which to operate into Europe. The extension would make Southampton an attractive option to the likes of Ryanair, EasyJet and Jet2, protecting and creating more jobs and increasing connectivity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coleman, for your contribution, and I'm pleased that you were able to join us this evening. Thank you. We will now move on to Bryony Richmond. Bryony.
Hiya, thank you. So I'm not as professional as everyone else. I haven't got facts and figures and things like that. But I used to be a travel agent. I worked for a travel agency in Eastleigh Town Centre. And daily, literally daily, 7 days a week. We would have people coming in, multiple people wanting to fly from Southampton. They didn't want to fly, they didn't want to go all the way up to Heathrow or Gatwick for, you know, a short weekend break or a family holiday with a load of kids. They don't want to go to a massive airport. They want something local. We did holidays to Mallorca, flying from Southampton, and they booked up instantly. It is a market out there. It is needed. People want to travel, and they want to travel locally. We have got the perfect transport links. We've got the train station right next to it. You've currently got a bus route down there. You could get more bus routes down there. It would bring so much money into the town. It would just do so much for the economy. For taxi drivers, it's going to pick up their business. More jobs will be available at the airport. Local companies, taxi firms, hotels, B&Bs, train companies, restaurants, everyone will see an increase in trade due to the increased volume of passengers. It's not like it's increasing to the capacity of Heathrow. You can't compare the two. Some people are saying the noise, is going to be awful. It's not going to be that bad. I mean, if we can't extend it, what's going to happen to the airport? And I hate to say it, but the airport will end up closing. And what's going to be built there? Housing, that's going to do worse for the environment. That's going to bring in more pollution, more traffic. The roads are going to be worse. This would make so much sense. It brings so much money into the town, so many more jobs for people. We're coming out of a pandemic. Loads of people have lost their jobs. Taxi drivers have lost so much money. This would help so many people, so many businesses. And I just think it's the perfect thing to do. I live just down the road from the airport, and I can't see how traffic or noise would be an issue. It wouldn't bother me in the slightest. If I had more destinations that I could fly to from Southampton, then I absolutely would. You haven't got the pollution of the traffic driving up to Heathrow, Gatwick. You haven't got the pollution of the traffic, just the cars just stuck in traffic.
30 seconds.
So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say, really. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian, for your comments and your contribution. Thank you. We will now move to Brian Johnson from the Solent LEP. Good evening, Mr. Johnson. Are you with us this evening? Okay, right. In which case then, we will move on to Ross McNally from the Hampshire Chamber of Commerce. Good evening, Mr. McNally.
Good evening. I'm Ross McNally, CEO and Executive Chair of Hampshire Chamber of Commerce, the BCC accredited chamber for the county. Hampshire Chamber, including its Planning and Transport Committee, is fully supportive of the planning application for Southampton International Airport. We believe it is essential that the planning application is proved for the best future of the airport. It is welcome that despite the current climate, airlines would wish to choose to operate services from Southampton. They recognise the potential of this vital transport link for the Solent economy. The development of this important connection is essential to support the ambitions of the Solent region with its growing business community, resident needs, and the vital tourism sector. The extension to the runway would provide the capability to secure additional carriers, helping future viability. The importance of this decision extends beyond the livelihoods of those employed at the airport and its supply chain. As important as these are, the whole Solent business community depends on a well-connected region. As the voice of Hampshire business, we recognise how vital it is that we are connected with our customers, our markets, our suppliers and our employees at sites nationwide and beyond. This, in simple terms, aids business investment. The Solent is the UK's trading gateway to the world, and Southampton Airport is strategically located to support this global status. The economic restart we're about to experience provides an opportunity to establish the whole of the Solent as a favoured tourism zone business zone and trading gateway. Southampton and Solent being granted Freeport status strengthens the airport's vital role in supporting the business community and becoming an essential economic and transport link for the area. We support the airport's key role in a green recovery. It is through a considered development like this that the airport is able to progress positively towards the Jet Zero objectives, contributing to Solent being at the heart of innovation in cutting aviation emissions. In this context, we ask the panel to back the airport. We ask you to back local businesses, local communities, the visitor sector, and the great potential of this economy, ensuring the future prosperity of the airport and serving the whole of the Solent region.
30 seconds, please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McNally, for your comments and contribution this evening. We will now move on to our next speaker, Rod Bransgrove from the Aegeus Bowl. Good evening, Mr. Bransgrove.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, councillors and officers of Eastleigh Borough Council, and congratulations on your durability. I'm chairman of the Aegeus Bowl and Hampshire Cricket, and as many of you may know, Hampshire Cricket had a very good day today. I've listened to a lot of the previous debates with respect to this application, and I've heard assertions that the vote is not on the extinction of the airport, but a vote on the extension of its railway, of its runway, I beg your pardon. Whilst the words may be different, the consequences of rejection would undoubtedly be to confine our regional airport to suboptimal operation, unable to compete in the highly competitive 21st century air travel market. Make no mistake, a rejection of this proposal would constitute a major threat to the very existence of the airport itself and to the many hundreds of employees, suppliers and secondary service providers who are dependent on it. The local impact would go much further than this. Without adequate international connectivity, the Central South region will start to lose its vital allure to companies wishing to establish and develop their international businesses here. It will miss out to other more ambitious, more aggressive regions in the quest for both commercial and domestic settlement options, as well as for future investment in culture, education, tourism and sport. In order to maintain the economic well-being of the area, we must compete with the rest of the UK in promoting our region as the most desirable alternative for business, travel and education options. And in order to do this, we must offer, amongst other things, excellent connectivity by road, rail, sea and increasingly by air travel. Southampton is the epicentre of the UK cruise line industry, and Southampton Airport is the point of entry and departure for a high proportion of these tourists, many of whom include Southampton in their holiday itinerary. And extending the reach and capabilities of the airport will also encourage significant new inward tourism to the region with all its attractive features. I've heard many assertions about carbon footprints and environmental damage. Several committed and enthusiastic environmentalists have provided data about aircraft emissions and their consequent impact. This is to be expected and their opinions must be respected. But however, the data presented by them have limited relevance. The notion that limiting or blocking air traffic at one airport will impact on the national or even global carbon footprint is quite simply wrong. It will merely shift that traffic to another airport. The national carbon emissions will remain the same, although local air travellers will face longer journeys to more distant points of departure, and as a result of this, total emissions may actually increase.
30 seconds, please.
The rapidly growing air travel industry, together with all the other vehicular industries, are deeply invested in improving efficiency and pollution and are making great strides in this respect. Our attention must be focused on encouraging these activities rather than forcing local redistribution. I respectfully request all of the councillors after this long day to vote in favour of this vital proposal. The Central South region needs Southampton Airport, and Southampton Airport needs to extend its runway in order to remain viable. This enhanced airport will assist in realising the amazing potential offered by Eastleigh and all our neighbours in this region. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bransgrove, for coming to our meeting this evening and for your patience and for your comments. Thank you very much. Right, we will now move on to Mr. Ian Carter from the States of Alderney. Good evening, Mr. Carter.
Hello, good evening.
and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk to you this evening. States of Alderney are fully supportive of the runway extension for the following reasons. A vital and thriving Southampton Airport leads to a vital and thriving Channel Island of Alderney, and without that we would be an island that will not be the centre that it is. I need to remind councillors that the only link to the UK that Alderney has, direct link, is through Southampton Airport. Unlike our sister islands of Guernsey and Jersey, we don't have a ferry, so we are totally dependent for travel direct to the UK on Southampton Airport, and a thriving airport is what we want to see. As an economic enabler for the island of Alderney, the airport is key. It brings tourists to Alderney, it brings people to work, it brings people to live. We also see as an absolute key point medical access. Our main medical access for major medical issues is Southampton General Hospital. Without an airport that works fully and is fully operational, we would not have that medical access. It is also the key to business for the island and family relationships. We're an island of only 2,000 people. Hence, any form of diminution of the services that we can get from Southampton will actually affect us quite dramatically. I would urge you, councillors, please, to think of this very small community down a little just 50 miles, 60 miles south of you, that we are somebody who would really appreciate your vote in extending the runway to make sure that your airport is one that is fully financially sound, sustainable, and one that will have a real future. It's critical for the island of Alderney that the Southampton Airport remains a viable airport, and we would hope that you would vote for this extension to enable that particular facility and that particular operation to happen. Thank you very much for your attention this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carter, especially joining us from the island of Alderney. Thank you for your comments and your contribution. We will now move to our next speaker, and our next speaker is Paul Holmes, who is the MP for Eastleigh Borough. Good evening, Mr. Holmes.
Good evening, Madam Deputy Mayor. Thank you very much, and thank you, councillors, for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I'm clear that the future of Southampton Airport is at stake. Councillors should know that the failure to approve the runway extension will have a profound impact on local jobs and the wider Solent regional economy. I considered the decision of ELAC a hammer blow to our airport and its residents. It goes against the overwhelming public support for this proposal, as well as the detailed assessment carried out by its own planning team. After considering all of the evidence and data, the council's technical and planning experts concluded that this plan was consistent with the council's policies and should be approved. And as I said when addressing ELAC, it is rare for such a proposal to command the support of both the public and technical experts. Southampton Airport does in this case, and again I would urge councillors to reflect on this. And as I've said before, the public consultation found that 60% of people were in favour of the runway extension. The consultation has had over 7,500 respondents, and this has resulted in a clear signal of support. In addition to this, and following the ELAC decision, I launched a petition that called on councillors to do the right thing and support the runway extension. In just over a week, that petition has attracted 3,500 signatures of support. And despite the comments made by some councillors this week, I hope that that is noted. As I've always said, the airport should not have a free hand to do whatever it wants. Councillors should be clear that their own planning officers have not given the airport an easy ride. They have insisted on suitable planning conditions to make this runway extension acceptable. In my view, disregarding this assessment by officers is wrong. On the basis of all the evidence collected, officers have concluded that the runway extension should be approved by councillors. We have in place a noise cap that is legally enforceable. We have a generous noise insulation scheme and a cap on traffic movements. Southampton Airport is absolutely vital to our economy. Prior to Flybe, the airport directly employed over 1,000 people, but these numbers have fallen significantly. By approving the runway extension, councillors can not only safeguard the jobs of people currently working at the airport, but almost 950 jobs directly created. Southampton Airport is also at the heart of the exciting Solent Freeport plan. Without the runway extension, Southampton Airport would not be able to make the most of this fantastic opportunity. To conclude, Madam Deputy Mayor, I believe that the case for granting this approval is overwhelming. It is backed by the public and the Council's own technical experts who have addressed concerns regarding noise, traffic and air quality. I strongly support this application and call on all councillors to make the right decision. Failure to do so will be a disaster for our area. I hope councillors will support our airport and approve this application this evening or maybe tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holmes, for your comments and contributions this evening. It was good that you were able to join us. Thank you very much. Right, I'd like to thank all our speakers actually this evening that you were able to actually join us. I know the hour is quite late, and thank you very much for your patience. Andy Granfield, can I ask, do you have any points of clarification or comments, please?
No, I don't, Chair. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. In which case, then, we will move on to videos. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Fran. I am a Hackney Carriage private hire driver, badge holder in Eastleigh Borough. I would like the airport runway extension to go ahead because I believe Eastleigh needs that boost. We need that financial boost. People need jobs. We need people coming into Eastleigh. Drivers like myself need to be taking people to that airport and keeping local, not going all the way to Gatwick, Heathrow, Bournemouth, Bristol, Luton. How much more carbon emissions is that going to create by dozens and dozens of taxis making these long journeys when it could be more local? A lot of drivers have suffered, including myself, since Flybe went bust and when COVID hit. Eastleigh as a town itself has suffered massively. So many things have shut down, and I've been led to believe that the airport may close down if the runway extension doesn't happen. Eastleigh doesn't need that. We need the airport runway extension to happen. The wildlife will be fine, the trees will be fine, but drivers like myself won't be. Other people that work at the airport won't be. And ultimately the carbon emissions of taking people miles and miles away and then returning again, and then returning back again to pick them up a week or two later, that's not going to help the environment, in my opinion. So please, do the taxi drivers of Eastleigh a huge favour and extend this runway. Do the people that work at the airport a huge favour, extend this runway. And just for Eastleigh in general, please approve it.
My name is Caroline Osman. I'm the owner of WJ French & Son Shoe Shop in Bedford Place, Southampton. My business is over 200 years old, and I'm also the Vice Chair of the Go Southampton Business Improvement District. Go Southampton represents some 600 businesses in the city centre of Southampton. I wish to support the application for the runway extension. Today, I wish to focus on the economic opportunities that lie ahead if the application is approved. First, I would suggest that cleaner, quieter planes are on the horizon. Just a month ago, the Daily Telegraph covered the first flights of the Spirit of Innovation, 100% electric plane developed by the UK startup Electroflight with Rolls-Royce. New technologies will quickly address the quite legitimate environmental concerns of objectors to this application. Second, the airport is a crucial part of Europe's largest turnaround cruise port in Southampton, which hosts some 2 million passengers every year. In the next few weeks, the natural gas-powered Iona, the first in a new generation of huge cruise ships, will arrive with a capacity of 5,200 people. Its sister ship, Arviva, will arrive in 2022. By 2050, cruise passenger numbers will have doubled to 4 million. We need our airport to carry cruise passengers, crew and support staff to and from Southampton. Third, the airport is crucial to our wider visit economy. The city's new destination management plan points out that more than 8 million visits were made to Southampton in 2019, contributing 422 million of direct expenditure and supporting a total of 7,720 full-time job equivalents. We now strongly believe that we will win in our bid to be UK City of Culture, which could bring a further 28% of visitors to the city. Fourth and finally, the government's announcement of a new Solent Freeport endorses Southampton's claim to be the gateway of the world. For Britain, particularly in the post-Brexit era, already 90% of goods leaving the port go to destinations outside the EU, and our container traffic is also forecast to double by 2050. The Freeport, and indeed the airport itself, will be a massive incubator for green technologies. If the Solent region and the county are to prosper in this new era, we will need our airport. Now is the time for Southampton and Eastleigh to show their ambition and to create an economic and social environment in which future generations can thrive. We call upon you to hear the voice of our local employers and make a positive decision for our city and the wider region. Thank you.
Could you just confirm that's the end of the videos? Have we completed them, please? Yes, okay, right. Before we move on to any audios that we have or written statements, I would just like to make councillors aware of an amendment to our timetable. I'm sure you've all noticed what the time is, and I would just like to advise you all that we will not be hearing from Southampton Airport tonight as the applicant. When we reconvene tomorrow, they will be the first of people to speak. Thank you. Can we continue then, please, with the written statements?
Thank you, Chair. Here is a statement from Simone Langer. I would like to propose the approval of the extension for Southampton Airport. My reasons for this is because the airport is in serious danger of being lost if we don't extend it in line with other airports, which has allowed them to survive. I originally lived in Plymouth, and I've seen the same thing happen to their airport and a decline of companies wishing to fly from there due to the restrictions of plane sizes, and in the end they lost the airport completely. It was a massive blow to the city, and more businesses moved out of the city as the infrastructure wasn't there any longer. I feel that the same thing could happen here if we do not allow the extension to be approved. My question to be taken into consideration is how would people be able to get to Southampton for their cruises if you take the main infrastructure away? They would either travel by car individually, which causes more chaos on the local roads and of course pollution, or worse still, the cruise business moves to Liverpool or another location and we lose the cruising business altogether. Many people who may object to this proposal are probably the same people who take holidays abroad by flying, so my question would be, why can anyone object when they can use the service themselves, albeit at Gatwick, etc.? Please seriously consider the impact of not having the extension at Southampton Airport. If you really have to, only have flights flying until a set time at night. People who live near the airport must surely accept that when they bought their house there will be noise. Therefore, if this is not approved, it is very likely that Southampton Airport will have some major impacts to businesses that rely on this airport. It would be good to remind people who are objecting to this that more and more vehicles will be using the road as a replacement form of transport, and that will affect local people with further pollution and congestion. Please help us save this great airport and progress its future. Here is a statement from Ken Napier. As a previous regular user of this airport, I believe the future of this fine facility is at serious risk if approval for the extended runway is denied. Southampton and the surrounding towns need this request to be approved, as the airport will most likely close if larger aircraft cannot use the existing facilities. Please seriously consider the implications of non-approval of this planning request. Here is a statement from Sue Watts. Please approve the extension. So many livelihoods at risk if turned down. How many jobs lost? How much money lost in the local economy? New cruise liners coming to Southampton and weakened airport links to the rest of the world. We have so much scope, and at the end of the day, the additional 164 metres can be run by Usain Bolt in about 15 seconds. The noise will be no different. Don't be narrow-minded and support the local economy. Here is a statement from Kenneth Cousins. If the UK took a noble step for the environment and stopped all air travel, we would very quickly be falling into a third world country. Equally, if Southampton carries out a similar noble deed, we would be environmentally proud but quickly become one of the poorest cities in the UK. It could of course be argued there are alternatives such as Gatwick, Heathrow, Luton or even Bournemouth, but that action will only attract a greater concentration of business elsewhere, and Southampton will not be on the list as potential location. Equally, the additional impact on the environment for the Southampton holidaymakers travelling to airports in other locations makes no sense whatsoever. The longer term solution will inevitably be improved environmental air transport. It's happening very quickly with road transport, and I have no doubt we will see further major steps take place within transport by air. That's the prime solution, and not one city cancelling a much needed extension to the runway for improved transportation, both business and vacation. Here is a statement from Graham Meach. I've been an Eastleigh resident for my 70 years on this planet and have hence grown up with the airport since the 1950s. I've seen its many ups and downs over the years, and at times its recovery from various economic and political pressures. However, the current situation that we all find ourselves in provides a greater challenge to our airport than anything in my living memory. The runway extension of 164 metres, which is a starter strip, will provide the ability to make the current generation of aircraft more commercially viable by ensuring that they can take full payloads to the destinations that could be served from the airport. It has always been the case that flights from Southampton to Mallorca, Faro, Bergamo, etc. always had a payload restriction, and sometimes resulting in flights routing via Bournemouth to refuel. The starter strip extension will negate this restriction. On the subject of the extension being a starter strip, it should be noted that due to the current obstacle clearance limit, it does not extend the length of the runway available for landing aircraft. The landing threshold will remain in the same place. When considering noise pollution and carbon emissions, there are a couple of positives I would like to highlight. One, a full aircraft reduces the CO2 emissions per passenger for any given flight compared to a flight with a restricted payload. Two, every new generation of aircraft becomes quieter and more fuel efficient. For example, when comparing the latest generation of the Airbus A320 with its predecessor, the noise footprint is reduced by 50% and fuel burn by 20%. It's also very unlikely that 180 seat plus aircraft will be used on a daily schedule basis, as the market is currently not there to support that size of operation. Taking another angle on pollution and CO2 emissions, let's consider travel to and from the airport. If the airport were to be no longer sustainable, the 2 million or so passengers that it handles would need to travel to and from other airports to connect with their flights. So not only have you got the same aircraft emissions at their airport of departure, you also have the emissions of the travel to and from the other airport. The other primary consideration, of course, is the huge economic benefit that the airport brings to the local economy through jobs at the airport, ancillary jobs, buses, taxis, food outlets, hotels, etc. In conclusion, I would please ask that you support the application. Here is a statement from Terry Ann Horncastle. The airport needs to go ahead. We need to move past noise, environmental issues and traffic. These are going to be with us no matter which businesses take over the airport space. We should be looking at the horizon and the future generation. We need the economical stimulus this airport will provide, the connectivity to other major destinations and the ability to support our free ports. There are so many business opportunities that are being offered in the Solent area, and the airport will be pivotal in maximising these. Here is a statement from Christopher and Margaret Owen. I wish to re-register and repeat my and my wife's support for the airport runway extension and the benefit it will bring to local tradespeople and the wider economic community, most especially with jobs and income for the people of Eastleigh and Hampshire generally. This is not a remote support, as we do not live in the Eastleigh Borough, because the aircraft leaving and arriving via the northern direction of the current runway travel in front of our house, so we are aware of the air traffic and its impact. I fully appreciate the noise and environment long-term implications of this decision, but we prefer to think of the immediate benefit to the people and their families in the area from the financial help of the airport remaining viable, rather than it closing because it cannot attract long-term investment and usage. That economic advantage will be felt straight away, which I think outweighs the environmental impact, which we believe will be dealt with in the longer term as technology improves and quieter, less polluting aircraft are developed. We must help people to rid themselves of the debt and uncertainty caused by the COVID-19 pandemic and give immediate support to them, keeping their jobs and income. Here is a statement from Pete Thorns. I'm totally in favour of the planned increase of 164 metres to the existing runway, as what seems to have been totally missed is the fact that this will not allow bigger planes into Southampton, as Boeing 737 and Airbus A320 aircraft have been regularly operating in and out of the airport for years. What it will allow is these aircraft to operate full instead of having load restrictions on, and so be much more fuel efficient in the process. We need this airport, and we need to make it viable and cost effective to any airlines that operate flights from it. Would you operate a bus company if you knew you could only sell 75% of the seats and had to leave the other 25% empty? I find it really hard to believe that the noise figures quoted for the number of people affected can increase fourfold due to an extra 164 metres of runway, or is there a planned increase of 30,000 houses to be built in the local area in the next 10 years, all of which would have to be under the flight path as well? It seems to me there's been a lot of scaremongering going on as to the environmental impact of this. The extra runway length will not increase noise levels fourfold over the next 10 years, as the airport can only handle limited numbers of planes at one time due to parking restrictions and encroachment issues with the current instrument landing system. As it stands at the moment, you can only park 2 Boeing 737 or A320 aircraft at the airport at any one time, now anyway, so this naturally limits the number you can operate on a daily basis. The South now needs to establish good links with the rest of Europe and the world, with the news of the Solent Freeport getting approval from government. This opportunity is such a massive chance for the area to bring in much needed investment on a global scale with jobs and everything that brings, and put Eastleigh back on the map, with the airport being such a key part of such a successful business area. With the loss of Fords and the railway works closing, we need to make the airport a success and provide the local people with thousands of jobs, and so give the community something back. This area needs a good airport, and Southampton is that. It consistently wins awards for excellent service. It has an excellent railway link and the shortest rail to air connection time of any airport, so reducing traffic around the area. I urge the good people of Eastleigh Borough Council to support this runway extension and safeguard the livelihoods of so many residents of the people who you represent. This is the springboard to allow Eastleigh to have an airport that everyone can be fully proud of and fully utilised to its potential. At the moment, the council have no say on how many cars or passengers can use the airport, so have no control really on it. But by allowing this runway extension, the council do gain control on these factors. The ironic thing about all the no voters was that in not allowing the extension to take place, they were actually stopping you, the council, from having any of these control measures in place, and so potentially allowing the airport to do whatever it liked in terms of number of flights, passengers, cars and night flights. This extension needs you to vote yes for so many reasons. Here is a statement from Kevin Stokes. I wish to add my support for the runway extension and expansion at Southampton Airport. For the record, I live in Eastleigh and planes fly past my house. Extra flights don't bother me at all. I get more noise from road and rail traffic instead. The airport has great road and especially rail access. All it's restricted by is the M27 one end and the railway yards the other. It's never going to turn into a Gatwick or a Luton. The airport doesn't have the parking stands either. Newer planes are always more quieter and fuel efficient and greener. Boeing 737 MAX and Airbus A320neo are the types the airport are hoping to attract. It can take 737-320 aircraft now, but not fully loaded, which is why the extension is needed. The environmental impact will be looked at, but consider this: if it's rejected, residents in Hampshire, Dorset, Wiltshire, etc., who will be denied the chance to use our local airport, will then be forced to trek to Heathrow, Gatwick, etc., and that too has an environmental cost on top of the loss of business. Hopefully, when the pandemic is over and air travel returns en masse, Southampton can return to being the strong regional airport that it was, that we need, and the local economy needs. Thank you. Here is a statement from Elsa Hogan. I am Elsa Hogan, Managing Director of RHH Franks Limited. We are an aerospace manufacturing company with the New Forest, employing 50 local and highly skilled engineers with supporting roles. I would like to express my support for the proposal to extend Southampton Airport. Being an SME within the region, having a thriving airport is crucial, not only to the local economy, but to also inspire the future generations of engineers, technicians and fitters, etc. With regards to RHH Franks, sourcing skilled employees is becoming increasingly difficult, and with an ageing workforce, this is a significant risk not only to my own business, but to all engineering firms within the region. The solution is to grow our own through supporting apprenticeships and work experience placements. The more apprenticeship opportunities available and the more inspiring engineers and technicians there are within the region will mean that within the next few years there will be a rich pool of skilled personnel to support growing businesses such as RHH Franks. A thriving airport provides opportunities to younger generations within the local area and inspires them into the wonderful and rewarding world of aviation with the many opportunities it brings. I would like to reiterate, as a manufacturing SME within the Solent region, my full support for the extension of Southampton Railway Runway. Please do not hesitate to get in touch should you require any further information from myself.
Here is a statement from Mr. and Mrs. Partington. I am in favour of the Southampton Airport expansion because I feel it would benefit many people in the south by allowing them to conveniently travel to a far wider choice of destinations. It would also be saving fuel, pollution, time and much less stress. This is because those same people would still travel to their destination but would have to drive to a London airport or an airport much further away from their homes, therefore causing them to use much more fuel, which is bad for the pollution. The new expansion will create many jobs and bring in much more tourism over the Southampton area, and after this awful pandemic, it would help the south recover.
Southampton has always been the major travel centre for the south of England through the docks with the cruise liners, so why wouldn't we want to move forward to enhance the south's reputation for travel from the south of England, not only by shipping but by air? If the plans didn't go ahead, people would still travel but would be forced to use other airports which are much further away, which is defeating the energy saving which we are all in favour of, as they would still be in their cars for much longer. Here is a statement from Alan Dagswell. I fully support this application to extend the runway at Southampton Eastleigh Airport. I live approximately half a mile from the northern end of the runway and have lived here for just on 20 years. The noise issues, I believe, are of very little concern for two reasons. Firstly, modern jets are so much quieter than previous incarnations. How many of those present remember the days of the BAC 111, the Bristol Freighter and Dakota? In fact, I would be hard pushed to number the aircraft now taking off or landing at the airport. Should the runway be extended, then aircraft taking off to the north would cause no more issue than at present. Aircraft going south would start the takeoff run earlier, so would be higher when traversing Town Hill Park, thus reducing the impact of noise. On the subject of noise, the impact of the aircraft is momentary. Our two closest motorways persist in producing noise 24 hours a day, a noise we now live with. The issues of pollution can be argued forevermore. Fuel consumption is a small part of travel infrastructure. If I drive, use public transport or any land-based alternative, this will require a mile of hard surface for any mile travelled. This needs maintenance, machines causing pollution, materials requiring processing. Any aircraft which require a mere mile or so of concrete here and a mile or so of concrete there, how can one possibly compare the total pollution issues? A double-deck bus goes around 12 miles per gallon, carries up to 90 passengers. A 737 or similar carries up to maybe 300 and, surprise, surprise, crosses water without needing a bridge. If one must argue the economics or pollution or any other matter, then all aspects must be considered. The question of the airport's location is another poorly argued matter. The airport was here long before the houses and its location far from unique. Luton, Stansted, London City, Manchester, London Heathrow, nearly all were built away from the madding crowd. It has been the madding crowd that has encroached upon them. Support this application and stress its benefits or come to rue the day. I would welcome the opportunity to speak in person at committee. Here is a statement from Ms S. Rosenthal. I write to you today to request your consideration of approving the airport expansion plans. At the last meeting, I felt it unnecessary to write, as I felt surely given the significance of these plans to our local area, they would be approved. With that, I was wrong. However, this time round, I feel it absolutely necessary, given the last time these were rejected, to make my voice of a local resident heard. With this letter, I would like to give a balanced yet favour opinion of the plans. Whilst I fully understand and appreciate the concerns around the climate impact and noise implications, I feel the airport is being fair in what is offering in return for the combat to the effects of these. Not only this, but given the constant development of more modern, more efficient and quieter plane engines, I feel surely this would tip the balance of favour. I do agree that this is a tough decision, and whilst I have zero authority in any decisions, I have on numerous occasions sat at home and pondered over this subject. Having also read what the airport has had to say on this, stopping short of saying they would close if approval was not granted, I feel it fair to say, if you read between the lines, they are fairly obviously stating that this would be almost certainly the case, as the current runway cannot cater for anything larger than a regional airline, of which, if you do your research, it is clear for all to see we have very few in this country. If approved, the airport would be in a position to have much more viable options of airlines and aircraft visiting our fantastic city and being able to prosper for our local economy for many a year to come. This in our current economic is a must, and I feel if rejected, it will be an enormous loss for our local economy and fear us being left behind with other cities gaining from our losses. Once again, with all the pros and cons taken into consideration and more than what is written in this letter, I will once again ask you to approve the plans and help our city keep a vital service, not only for its passengers, but us as a city also. Here is a statement from Roger Boyce. It would be a retrograde step to refuse the proposed runway extension. Local concerns are real, but in this important case, regional and national interests must take precedence. Worries over noise and air pollution will over time diminish as aircraft engine technology advances. At regional and national levels, if Southampton is left without long-haul flight facilities, traffic loads on the arterial road network to Heathrow and Gatwick are likely to become unworkable. I would urge full council to support the application. Here is a statement from Richard Smith. There is no reason why the extension cannot go ahead. You as a council have gone against the recommendations of your own planning officers. You have also gone against a public consultation where 60% returned in favour of this going ahead. You've also gone against the Solent Chamber of Commerce, who were also strongly in favour of the extension. Southampton City Council have cleared the way for major construction, which will have far larger impact on the environment than the runway extension will ever have. Planes are already getting greener and the airport have won awards for their green initiatives. You as an elected council are there to listen to your electors and to go with the majority. The majority, as shown, are in favour of this extension, thus bringing jobs and job security as well as revenue to the borough. Here is a statement from Tony Blythe. Having been an Eastleigh resident the majority of my life, I must express my disappointment in your recent refusal to grant permission for the runway extension. In a few years' time, when Rolls-Royce have developed their new quiet engines, you will be looking at the vast sprawling housing estate where the airport once stood, instead of seeing a modern environment airport serving the local community. I accept there are short-term problems of noise, but everyone is living in the vicinity knew that Eastleigh was fully operational airfield and has been for the last 60 years. This extension will not increase the number of flights nationwide. It means the aircraft will operate out of Eastleigh instead of Gatwick or similar. What it will save is 90 cars driving to another airfield polluting the atmosphere on their way. Please think long and hard when you make your decision. Let the airport have a runway fit for purpose. Here is the statement from Paul Chandler. The small extension to the runway will allow the aircraft that currently use the airport to fly further afield, thereby opening up the possibility of attracting new airlines and destinations. The extension is a starter strip which will allow aircraft more room to accelerate and get airborne sooner, which will reduce the noise footprint. It will also allow reduced power departure, which again are quieter. Modern aircraft are considerably quieter and greener than those of even 20 years ago. The airport also provides a vital air link to the Channel Islands for patients and their families who need access treatment to Southampton Hospital. Here is a statement from George and Patricia Masterson. Having been in the Royal Air Force for 35 years, may we put the following to the committee. 1. After a few days, you do not notice the aeroplane noise. 2. Many people travel to and from Gatwick and Bournemouth from this area in cars. 3. The airport was there long before people complaining brought their properties, and flights, as a rule, start at 7:30 and finish at 11 p.m, not very late or every day. It would be so kind as to take our comments into consideration. That would be much appreciated. Here is a statement from Gary Wallace. I live locally in Fair Oak and I am very much in favour of the runway extension at Southampton Airport. You only need look down the High Street and Market Street in Eastleigh to see the decline the town centre. The creation of over 1,000 jobs at the airport will undoubtedly create a much needed boost to the local economy. I currently try to use Southampton Airport where I can, but Gatwick is normally the second choice, which is 2 hours in the car each way. I cannot be the only person making this journey regularly. I am very much aware of the campaigners who keep on about trying to reduce the carbon footprint. Surely by extending the runway and opening up more opportunities locally will eliminate the need for myself and many others to travel to Gatwick and thus reducing the carbon footprint from using their cars. I have spoken to many local residents about the extension and they are of the same opinion. If the council reject the plan and application for the runway, then the airport will close and the land will be built on with yet more houses. Come on, Eastleigh Borough Council, this is your big chance to put Eastleigh on the international map. Don't mess it up by voting against the runway extension. Here is a statement from Alex Mayhughes. I am writing this letter of support for the proposed runway extension at Southampton Airport. I believe the Eastleigh Local Area Committee will be making a big mistake not approving the runway extension. I believe the runway extension will be a great asset to the south of England, Hampshire and the city of Southampton. Southampton has a proud aviation history going back to World War II, when producing the Spitfire to modern day with supplying aircraft structures and maintenance. Thanks to the aviation history in Southampton has allowed me to grow and develop into the manufacturing engineer I am today. I hope this continues for years to come in the local area to allow people to follow their dreams in having a career in the local aviation section. Allowing the runway extension to happen will create local jobs for those who have lost their jobs due to COVID and the collapse of Flybe. I believe after COVID there will be huge demand for passengers to go on short-haul holidays to places such as the south of Europe, Turkey and Canary Islands. Allowing the runway extension to happen will allow the airport to accommodate aircraft such as A320s and B737s, which will then allow Southampton Airport to compete with Bournemouth Airport. Around 1.5 million people live in the south coast of Hampshire And for us to go on holiday to such a place as the south of Europe, Turkey and Canary Islands, we have to travel to Gatwick, Heathrow, Stansted or Bournemouth with limited flights, which then means that we have to either travel by car, bus, railway, which means more CO2 being generated from these unnecessary trips if the runway extension does not happen. Modern aircraft are very efficient and are continually being more environmentally friendly. If the runway extension is allowed to happen, I believe the demand for flying from Southampton will increase, and this will reduce the number of trips being made to other airports, especially with the number of houses being built and new people moving into the local area. The need for more productive airport is massively important to the local infrastructure and community for the south coast of England. On a final note, I would like to make is the benefit the airport will have to the local cruise industry. There will be huge demand on the cruise industry after COVID, and allowing the runway extension to go ahead will help support this demand and continue to make Southampton the main cruise ship port in the UK. I hope my comments above help in making a decision on Southampton Airport's runway extension. I believe us as locals to the area that it will benefit the whole of the south coast of England, making it a more accessible place for tourists and allowing us local to have more option when applying for jobs and going on holiday.
Here is a statement from David Sankey. I believe the expansion needs to happen. It would be excellent for Eastleigh, businesses, etc. Southampton, i.e. cruise holiday makers and the general area. RE, noise level, after working at Royal Mail sorting office for jet engine planes, except executive jets are quieter than turboprop planes, plus larger planes can carry more passengers, obviously requiring less planes. Therefore, I, for anyone voting against the expansion, is short-sighted and not fully educated on the why and wherefores of aircraft transport. Here is a statement from Wendy Wallace. I have lived in Eastleigh all my life. Southampton, Eastleigh Airport, has very much been an integral part of the community in terms of the local economy and jobs to the region. I am very much in favour of the runway extension, which will undoubtedly create many jobs and thereby boosting the local economy, which is badly needed in the current climate. I appreciate that there are concerns for noise, air pollution in the area, but surely the creation of many local jobs will far outweigh the green concerns. At the end of the day, you are not going to stop people flying, both nationally and internationally. My carbon footprint will be increased by having to drive several hours to other local airports, so it makes sense to approve the planning application for the extension of Southampton Runway. Here is a statement from W. Cutler and K. Gandy. Residents of this area, the New Forest in central southern England, need a good transport infrastructure. We already have good road and rail facilities, and an improved airport would complement them. Currently, Southampton Airport does not offer sufficient medium to long-haul destinations, so travellers must use either Bournemouth, Gatwick, or worst case, Bristol or Exeter. Travelling to these airports causes pollution on the roads and stressful start to a journey. Geographically, Southampton is perfect. The reduction of road pollution would surely offset the supposed increase in air pollution. Our nearest airport, Bowen, does not have excellent transport links. The parking, including pick-up and drop-off, is inadequate and antiquated. Southampton's parking is excellent. We have lived in the New Forest area all our lives, currently the last 30 years, under the flight path, and not found it a problem. Without this extension, the airport may not be financially viable and be forced to close. Local businesses will suffer. For residents of the Channel Islands in particular, this would be disastrous. For cancer patients and those needing specialist treatment at Southampton University hospitals, the air link is vital. In conclusion, we believe that this is very short-sighted of the Council not to support this venture. Southampton is a city needing a boost. A new cruise terminal was being built. The airport upgrade would increase employment in the area and continue with the rejuvenation of the city and surrounding areas. Here is a statement from Niall Cogan. I fully support the runway extension at Southampton Airport. This is due to a number of reasons. Helps cut traffic to London airports and in turn lowers CO2, helps support tourism in the local area and sustains many jobs in bars, restaurants and local businesses. Helps maintain the airport to be viable. As I am a commercial pilot, I know that the current runway isn't supported to today's new efficient aircraft that will burn less fuel and carry more passengers, emit 40% less noise than older aircraft currently flying. Today, example, the Boeing 737 MAX. Please approve this planning application. Here is a statement from Nick and Sandra Clothier. We have lived in Diamond Road under the flight path of the airport since 1976. I think it is a case of those against shouting loudest because we may close neighbours, my son and his family in Broadwater Road, Townhill Park, all living directly under the flight path, do not consider the noise of the aircraft to be a problem. Also, I belong to a local Bitten Park forum and much discussion has been going on about the airport. Some people do not realise how important the airport is to the local economy, but I can honestly say that from the comments on there, it appears a high majority of residents are eager for the runway extension. In the 70s, it was very noisy, but as the years have gone by, they have become significantly quieter and they pass over quicker. As plans continue to modernise aircraft, there will be fewer buzzing propeller planes, and I cannot see the noise being an issue in the future. From an environmental point of view, the biggest pollution blight on Southampton comes from the cruise and container ships which run their engines 24/7, whether berthed or at sea, the diesel trucks serving the port which clog up the M271 every day, and the diesel trains serving the port, as well as diesel passenger trains serving the city. Then of course, we have general traffic pollution from other vehicles. The emissions from aviation come relatively low down on this list. The pollution would be offset by preventing local people all travelling in their cars up to the London airports. Destinations from Bournemouth are limited. We are in a difficult economic position right now as a country because of the pandemic, with people across Southampton losing their jobs and getting our airport back to life with a runway extension would provide employment for many and will be a good way to help kickstart the local economy. A thriving and viable airport is vital to the success of Southampton as a city and local economy, and the runway is crucial to securing this. Here is a statement from Mike Clark. As a resident of the area, I'm in favour of the extension as I believe it will bring economic advantages to the area through employment and increased tourism. Southampton has for many years been a gateway to the rest of the world. As such, it helps local businesses to have transport links including air travel to the UK and overseas cities. Being so close to the motorway allows easy access to and from the area and fits with Southampton being a hub for passenger liners. I personally do not want the option to fly from a local airport, as this means less. I personally do want the option to fly from a local airport, as that means less pollution, less traffic on the road, having to travel to airports further away. As technology continues to increase, the future air travel is likely to become less polluting and quieter. I do, however, support the restricted night flights as to minimise disturbance to local residents. If the airport closes, there is one less amenity at hand for the future. Here is a statement from Meryl Aldridge. I'm writing to express my support for the proposed runway extension. Southampton is a local transport hub with far better infrastructure and connections than Bournemouth. By extending the runway, the airport will be able to service a wide local community of businesses and holidaymakers, thus avoiding the need to travel to London. The airport supports many jobs and enables local businesses to grow. The local economy feeds into the wider southern Hampshire area, thus benefiting more families. Although COVID-19 has limited normal life, more than 12 months, we should now look to the future and the continued availability of the airport as part of this. Here is a statement from Robin Pethenbridge. The Southampton Airport runway extension, enabling larger planes that will be able to fly further, will mean huge savings in car journeys to Heathrow and Gatwick, hundreds or even thousands per day. Saving time, saving fuel, reducing road traffic pollution, and motorway traffic congestion. A major boost to inward investment, as the Eastleigh area will become a much more attractive place to set up business, having links to more places in Europe. I support the longer runway wholeheartedly. Here is a statement from Martin Ferguson. I'm in favour of extending the runway at Southampton Airport. The extension of the runway at Southampton Airport is vitally important, not only for the life of the airport, but also the surrounding community. The airport brings so much business to the city. The rail and road links are already more than adequate to handle a few bigger planes and increase traffic to the airport with the use of bigger, larger capacity planes. This would also bring money into the town of Eastleigh, with more people coming into the area. Southampton is a big business city, and the airport brings not only business links into the city, but also into Eastleigh, as well as plenty of passengers flying in for cruises. Without the extension of the airport, it faces a very tough few years and even closure, and that's based on your decision today. Thousands of jobs will be lost rather than hundreds more created. In such uncertain times, surely that is enough to grant this extension alone. For residents of Hampshire, West Sussex and parts of Dorset alone, we face travel to Heathrow, Gatwick, Luton, or maybe even Bristol Airport. For flights abroad in the future, that's around 90 to 270 minutes extra onto our journeys, plus fuel and expensive airport parking. In terms of extra noise from planes, there's a lot of feedback from the top aerospace engineers that in the very near future, aeroplane engines will become quieter and more efficient with fuel, reducing emissions and noise pollution. I have looked through the detailed plans within this extension and the need to keep the nature reserve on the property, and also noise reduction defences being erected. I honestly cannot see any reason to reject these plans based on complaints of noise pollution, of which all residents within the flight path will have chosen to move into the flight path during their lifetime, knowing full well what the noise may be. The amount of jobs at risk, the pride of the local area, the history into the airport, with the Spitfire making its maiden flight from there, will all be gone if this application isn't granted. Please do the right thing and allow the extension to the runway. The future of thousands of jobs and livelihoods are in your hands. Here is a statement from Hilary Adkin. I am writing to voice my support for the proposed extension to the runway at Southampton Airport. It is vital to the local economy that the airport is given the opportunity to improve its viability and continue to be a valuable transport hub for the south of England. Airports bring jobs, not just in the airport itself, but in the ancillary support functions, including the hospitality and freight industry. Businesses are attracted to set up close to airports, and Southampton Airport, with its rail and proximity to the M27 and M3, is superbly situated to cope with a managed expansion in traffic. Having previously lived near Heathrow for over 15 years, I can testify that an airport brings a vibrant local economy, and the plan for Southampton will bring a good measure of those economic benefits, whilst mitigating the environmental impacts that a mega airport such as Heathrow creates. This area needs all the economic growth it can take post-COVID, and I urge you to take the long view and support this essential development for the prosperity of our region.
Here is a statement from Susan Harrison. I send this statement in support of the application by Southampton Airport for the extension to the runway. I believe approving the extension to the runway is imperative to guaranteeing the future of the airport. It is vital to the local economy to retain and improve the airport. There is not only the immediate impact on the loss of jobs directly associated with the functioning of the airport, but also the employment which exists secondary to the airport's operation, ranging from taxi services, local hotels and small businesses, retail establishments. One would question the viability of maintaining 2 railway stations if the airport were to close or reduce service. Also, the airport benefits the local cruise line trade, which it seems local councils are quite happy to support, despite the environmental impact of this mode of transportation, despite figures show they produce more CO2 emissions per passenger mile than air travel. If the airport cannot operate as a viable concern, then it would seem that there would be little other alternative than to close. The only way this can be achieved is to be able to attract operators in who can open up viable routes to a wider range of destinations. This will not necessitate operating larger aircraft than already use the airport, but will allow a greater capacity than previously allowed due to weight restrictions at takeoff, because the length of the airport is instrumental to takeoff speed. Furthermore, the airport is vital for patients from Channel Islands who require specialist services provided by UHSFT. The argument against the environmental effects are somewhat NIMBY, as they are quite happy for these effects to the environment to occur in Bournemouth or Lyon-Solent, as have been mooted as an alternative locations. The effect of the wider environmental issue is not relevant if they are proposing other airports are viable alternatives to Southampton Airport, as air pollution will occur wherever air travel occurs, though I believe there is much research into less use of air corridors and better use of airspace than currently employed. The airport has made numerous changes to the application to alleviate the concerns of local residents on the flight path and has committed to becoming carbon zero, alongside their offers to provide sound insulation for residents most affected. I fully appreciate concerns for the environmental impact, but believe the proposal mitigates these well, and on balance, the benefits of the extension far outright the risks and negative impact. As a local resident who lives directly by the airport, I offer my unequivocal support for this application. Here is a statement from Anne and Michael Savage. My husband and I live in Centenary Quay, Woolston. We have lived here since August 2013, and although we're on a flight path for Southampton Airport, we haven't let that bother us. We both believe that the advantages of extending the runway and expansion to the airport far outweigh the disadvantages. If people had to go to Gatwick, Heathrow or Bournemouth, you would have the extra traffic on the roads, etc., causing pollution. There are lots of new homes built around Eastleigh and close to the airport, and all the people should have known that there is an airport there. The jobs this expansion could create and bring to the Eastleigh and Southampton area is also a benefit. We are sure if you asked all the people in Southampton and Eastleigh if they want this expansion, most would say a resounding yes. Has any of these decision-maker councillors moved to these nice new homes? Is that the reason some of these councillors are against the extended runway? Force and Pirelli are gone and railway workshops are run down. The expanded airport would be much needed and welcome boost for Eastleigh. Here is a statement from Christopher Hedges. That this decision has not yet been taken and is now before the full council is testament to the prolonged and convoluted planning systems operated in England and the UK, and appears to be held up to accommodate those who object on grounds of noise pollution and increased nuisance, rather than the more pragmatic approach of considering the benefits to the area, community and business commerce. Without the growth and development of the local economy, of which this application is an essential part, there can be little or no development of the improvements to the environment, health, travel, work and lives of local people, regardless of their views on the extension. This extension will offer a great deal of limited expansion of the runway, and contrary to some views, will make the airfield safer and enable aircraft to escape into the air much quicker and with less noise and nuisance. Councillors must agree to this application for the benefit and majority, and whilst taking measures to offer some solace to objectors, cannot abrogate this responsibility by deferment or failure to decide in favour. If so, in the inevitable prospect arises that the decision will be passed to ministers, at which point voters will be justified in asking, what is local government for, other than to impede progress? Here is a statement from Richard Searson. As an Eastleigh Central resident, I would like to express my full support for the runway extension to be approved at your full council meeting on the 8th of April 2021. The economic benefits to our area to add this short extension outweighs any of the myths and non-truths running alongside why this should not be allowed. It seems from the planning application there are plenty of safeguards in this to protect us all, as well as allow much needed economic growth to return this borough following the COVID-19 pandemic. One of these myths is larger planes. From my understanding, the planes, i.e. the 737s, the 320s, etc., which currently use the airport, will be able to fly with a full load rather than restricted, which this short extension will allow. For me, that is far greener approach, especially with the Freeport being proposed and a true gateway being developed in the area. The newer aircraft are far cleaner than ever before and continue to develop that way, far better than the cruise terminal just down the road and the high recorded pollution they cause when fully operating. One of my main reasons for moving to Eastleigh 4 years ago was the excellent travel connections both by train and air that Eastleigh offers. I have used the airport both business and pleasure. The benefits of not having to travel great distance to other airports and face the usual delays that invariably occur is a major plus. Reducing my car usage and time is also important. It was with great sadness to see the demise of Flybe last year, and of course COVID-19 curtailing travel in general. Yes, changes in how we meet have been made, and this may look like the extension as planned is not required. However, if this opportunity is not given, I feel the whole area will lose out into the future by not keeping up with important travel links and destinations by attracting much needed economic growth. I do not want to see the airport returned to a privately use only and the airwaves above us clogged with more noisy, unrestricted light aircraft, which could happen if this is not allowed. Southampton Eastleigh Airport is a fantastic asset, and I hope you take on board the positive majority of our views that want this to happen and to develop further this asset that we have here. A small extension will create a lot of positive results for the airport, local businesses and employment, which has to be taken as priority after this bad year for us all. Please uphold this application for all of our futures here. Here is a statement from S. Kendall. I wholeheartedly support the plans to extend the runway at Eastleigh Airport. I think it's the best thing for Southampton and Eastleigh. As far as pollution is concerned, I think any extra pollution will be cancelled out by less cars travelling up the M3 past Eastleigh. It will be great for employment. I live very close to the landing and takeoff approaches, and I really don't think the noise will be any worse than it is on any normal summertime. My wife and I both think it would be a great asset for Southampton and Eastleigh area, so we hope you vote in favour of the airport extension. Here is a statement from Jen Turner. I'm writing to you all to urge you to reconsider any negative opinion towards what is only a small yet vital extension to the runway. We keep being told by protesters and the press that it is for bigger aircraft. This really isn't the case. A320s and 737 aircrafts, which can use the airport, can only do so with restrictions. These efficient aircrafts, especially the A320 NEO and later versions of the 737, are not only quieter but more environmentally friendly than older versions. Any possible new operator looking to take on the current void destinations left by Flybe operate aircraft such as the A320, a prime example being EasyJet. The council will have more control over aircraft operations than ever before, and along with the mitigation already offered by the airport, means a far more accountable airport in the local community. Not only is the airport a vital part of the Solent region connectivity with the UK and Europe, it also supports thousands of jobs, a vast majority that are directly local. With electric and hydrogen aircraft on the horizon, it will be very ironic if this application is turned down. The airport potentially ceases to exist, then these new aircraft appear and are unable to fly from here, and passengers then have to travel further afield using more energy to get there. I sincerely hope you all fully grasp the important role the aircraft has to play in the local economy, and hope you allow this gem of local infrastructure to extend their runway. Here is a statement from Suzanne Newey. I'm a local resident on the Lakeside estate in an area that could be affected by noise, air pollution and traffic. Despite this, I want the airport expansion to go ahead. The value the airport brings to our local area is vast, and building on that by expanding the runway is an exciting and progressive move. Our local economy needs the jobs and the enrichment the airport brings. The devastation caused by not having these will have much bigger impact on the local area than any small increase in traffic or air pollution. Here is a statement from the door-to-door cars team. The decision to extend the runway is of great importance to local companies, local communities and the surrounding areas. The Southampton Docks Freeport and the Southampton Airport Freeport will need to work in conjunction with each other, especially in these circumstances and COVID-19 times, to aid in the local recovery. I believe Eastleigh and the Southampton area needs the extension to help the future and to rebuild the business infrastructure in our community and create the much needed jobs, especially after the hard-hitting situation that has affected Hampshire and our country. My company, Door to Door Cars, used to transport many passengers to and from the airport and will need this to be part of our local recovery. The extension will encourage passengers to use our local airport rather than travel to Gatwick and airports further afield. Tens of thousands of locals will have to travel further if the application is denied and cause a huge increase to the harmful emissions. A denial will be a great disservice and will be a huge leap backwards. During the upcoming elections, would a councillor have the right to talk about the future economy or job creation if this was denied? Here is a statement from Peter Garrett. I moved to Eastleigh in 2015 and bought a house on Southampton Road, level with the northern end of the existing airport runway. I moved there knowing that I would be able to hear and see aeroplanes and trains from my house. I support the proposed expansion of Southampton Airport, including the runway extension, both from the point of view of my own preference and the benefits to the town of Eastleigh and surrounding area. I think that jet airliners have a bad reputation for noise since decades ago they were extremely noisy. For example, the BAC 111 aircraft that used to use Southampton. Modern jet airliners are now very much quieter. In my opinion, the noise from jet airliners is not unpleasant since it's a smooth noise, and from the front room of my house, the sound of a jet taking off northwards is only audible for less than 10 seconds. By contrast, I find the noise from small propeller aircraft irritating. They are audible from the front room of my house, typically from 30 to 40 seconds. The last thing that I would want for Southampton Airport to have frequent flights by small, privately propeller-driven aircraft. This would be the only thing that would make me want to move away from the area. In my opinion, if the runway extension doesn't go ahead, Southampton Airport could become a haven for small private propeller aircraft, which I find very irritating, unlike jets. Another point in favour of jets is that unlike propeller airliners, they make very little noise when on the ground, except when on their takeoff run. Propeller airliners like the Dash 8 make quite a lot of noise when taxiing or stationary. From a wider perspective, since Southampton Airport is adjacent to a station served by fast and stopping trains, it would be a pity to waste this facility by allowing the airport to fall into decline. The biggest source of air pollution where I live is from the frequent passage of MTS Southern Water lorries, which give a very strong and unpleasant smell of stale urine. I think that air pollution in Eastleigh from jet airliners would be negligible compared to this. I would rather see Southampton Airport writhing than moribund, and I ask the council to support the proposed airport expansion, including the runway extension. This is a statement from Iris Hendry. I moved house to be nearer Southampton Airport as it is such a good airport for disabled people. I am physically disabled and originally come from London, where there are lots of airports to choose from, but none of them meet the standards of Southampton. From car park to the entrance exit, it's all flat. The internal parks are easily accessible and light and airy for those with visual difficulties. Disabled people can be met by airport staff in the car park or within the airport in a short time, so in cold weather we do not get frozen while waiting maybe half an hour for assistance. Staff are always very polite and helpful. I love this airport. Now I have to use Bournemouth, which is as bad as you can get for access for disabled people. The car parks are bumpy and full of muddy puddles. Getting to the entrance is uphill and sideways, so trying to get a wheelchair to go in the direction required is almost impossible, as wheels want to go towards the road. The cafe, bar and food area is in semi-darkness and it's cold and drafty. Please don't allow our local airport to be destroyed by something that should help the environment, as bigger modern planes are better for the environment.
Here is a statement from Shane Phillips. I would like to voice my thoughts on the proposed runway extension to Southampton Airport. I'm the director of Blink Web Limited and I have a home office which is actually under the flight path of Southampton Airport at the top of Bishopstoke. I've lived in Bishopstoke and the Eastleigh Borough my entire life and enjoy seeing the planes and having such a local convenient airport. This has allowed me to travel for business purposes and holidays right on my doorstep. Yes, you sometimes hear and notice the odd plane coming into land, but for me this is not an annoyance but a reminder of how lucky we are to have such a vital transport link on our doorsteps. Let's be honest, With the collapse of Flybe, it's become clear that not many airlines operate planes small enough to use Southampton Airport effectively. The increase in runway length will make Southampton Airport more attractive to many airlines, which will increase competition and ultimately lower prices, not to mention give us access to new destinations further afield. Whilst the airport may survive in the short term with no extension, it's become very clear from Southampton Airport that this will affect thousands of jobs and put the future in doubt of their viability as a regional airport. How long will they survive if no airlines are attracted to the airport? 89% of Southampton Airport customers used Flybe. Without competition coming in, that's 89% fewer customers for the airport. How will they survive on such a loss? Not granting the extension will leave us airport users having to get up at 4 AM and travel up to Gatwick or Heathrow for those further afield Europe destinations, along with the increased wait times for baggage handling, security, parking, etc. Southampton Airport has always been a pleasant, quick and efficient experience. I can cycle to the airport and be on my flight to a customer within the hour. I listened carefully to the ELAC meeting the other week, and many times Bournemouth Airport was mentioned. Bournemouth Airport simply doesn't have the same public transport links Southampton does. Not many airports are lucky enough to have a train station just a stone's throw from the terminal and the core motorway network. I also heard the many concerns re climate change. With Southampton Airport taking up just a minuscule percentage of UK emissions, I think Eastleigh Council should instead focus on the environmental impacts at a more local level, leaving the UK government to tackle the aviation industry as a whole UK-wide. Greener air travel is coming, and without a local airport, it will be a shame for us not to be a part of this future revolution. Our councillors are voted in to reflect the views of the local residents. 60% of respondents were for the runway extension. That is a landslide in political terms, and I urge the council to support the extension and represent your constituents. Here is a statement from James Saunders. I wish to support Southampton Airport's runway extension. The extension is within the existing airport perimeter and will allow larger aircraft to land and take off, enabling travel to destinations that are further away. This will make Southampton Airport more financially viable and reduce journeys to Bournemouth, London, Gatwick, etc. Although larger aircraft may use more fuel and be noisier, newer and future aircraft will be more fuel efficient and quieter. Without the extension, we risk losing our local airport and the convenience this brings its residents. Here is a statement from Graham Compton Price. I still strongly believe that Southampton Airport extension will be beneficial in terms of jobs and the local economy. The lull in flying is only because of COVID, no other reason. Once people get their freedoms back, travelling abroad will be right at the top. You are never going to stop people flying and exploring the world, so we might as well make use of local facilities to accommodate the travelling public. Also, in a few years, planes will be hybrid or even electric powered, so a win-win all round. Here is a statement from Mrs. P. Lambert. The airport is a crucial part of Eastleigh, our hometown. Not only does it provide employment for many young and older families that live in the area, it is also a major link to the Channel Islands, enabling them to get to our hospitals for sometimes life and death care, and is a commuter link for people working in other areas of the country. The expansion is not a massive deal. People need to understand the reasons for the expansion and realise the impact is going to be minimal. Do they complain about all the new housing estates being built, which in reality bring far more environmental damage, not only to our ever-decreasing green land, but also more cars on the roads, less space in schools, more people on your doctor's surgeries, meaning less availability for appointments? My point being, change has effects, whatever. This airport is not only needed by the town, which is disappearing, but is also a lifeline for many people for whatever their reason. Healthcare, holidays, work, financial stability for our town. Let's get this improved and build forward from this. More people will use the airport, which in turn boosts our economy, which could then help to regenerate a town centre that is dying a death. Eastleigh is a ghost town now, regardless of COVID. The airport has and always should be there. The planes are more advanced and emit less emissions. No one complains about the trains. If you bought a house in this area, you would have known that the airport and train station are there, and no doubt that was reflected in the price of your properties. So it's your choice to live there. Losing this extension will impact on the future of the airport, which in turn I believe will lead to us losing it altogether. Think of the next generation to come and employment, and the matter of families being able to provide for their families with jobs at the airport, as opposed to the threat of loss of jobs, more unemployment and no jobs, which means more people claiming from the state. Move on, life doesn't stay still. Fingers crossed this gets approval, as I for one can see no reason at all why this can't happen. Here is a statement from Anthony Lee. I would urge you to vote in favour of Southampton Airport runway extension for the following reasons. 1. History shows us that good transport communication locally and internationally is what drives forward a prosperous, forward and outward-looking society which is a benefit to all people. Southampton is a major maritime trading port, and can you imagine what Southampton would look like today if it was never allowed to develop into one of the major ports of the UK, and the consequences that would have had on the local community in employment and commerce? So, a modern airport with local and worldwide connections can only be an asset to Southampton and the wider community. 2, I understand some people's fear over noise and air pollution, but one thing I know is that with modern technology always moving along at a fast pace, aircraft will become quieter and cleaner, with hopefully electric-driven engines in the not-so-far future. 3, at present, when I fly abroad, I normally have to drive to London Gatwick Airport because Southampton does not fly to many of the popular destinations people want to go to. This leads to hundreds of thousands of people driving their cars across the country every year, which is a large cause of pollution and added strain to existing road infrastructure and London airports, which could be alleviated by the use of more local airports such as Southampton. Here is a statement from Alison Mansell. I'm writing to express my support for the Runway extension. I'm a resident of Eastleigh and feel that the area has suffered due to the global pandemic. The Council's previous decision about the runway is short-sighted and detrimental to the economy of our local area. We need the airport to be competitive and busy. It will create jobs and boost the economy, not only at the actual airport, but within the town centre, creating business opportunities and employment for many people. The ability for people to travel directly to Southampton Airport will support the cruise economy when it is able to recommence. It will reduce motorway traffic for travellers who currently have to drive to and from London airports. I was dumbfounded by the decision last week and felt that I had to add my vote in support of the runway extension wholeheartedly. Here is a statement from Helen Orchard. The airport has been here a lot longer than us. My parents live directly under the flight path and I'm not far from the airport. We all fully support the extension. The reasons given for the first stage refusal are inadequate, to say the least. The impact on the area, pollution and other environmental factors are no more than the influx of new builds being built locally without the improvements to infrastructure. The larger planes are not just bigger, they are less polluting and quieter than the planes currently being flown, and as such the impact from these things means there is no reason to refuse this extension. With regard to the additional traffic, again the infrastructure is better in that location and much more equipped to deal with it. The restrictions in passenger numbers will ensure that the extra numbers won't make a huge difference. The airport is vital to the area in its entirety, and extending the runway will ensure that we can recover from the current pandemic and bring in much needed business to all surrounding areas. I totally support this extension and as such urge you to do the same. Here is a statement from Gillian Woodhead. I write to express my dismay at the recent decision by the Eastleigh Local Area Committee to refuse the above planning application. The council, which is composed of lay people, rightly employs highly qualified paid officers whose job it is to thoroughly investigate planning applications and to provide a detailed rationale for its recommendations. The officers recommended approval. Why has the council gone against this? The airport is a huge asset to the city and its surrounding areas, without which much business would be lost. The city has recently been granted Freeport status, and I understand also that Southampton City Council is preparing to undertake a multi-million-pound revamp of the city to turn it into an efficient transport hub. How ironic, a transport hub without an airport, that doesn't make sense. If the area does not move with the times, it will decline and the potential prosperity will shift to more forward-thinking regions. I appreciate there are environmental issues here. The airport has offered a number of solutions to help mitigate these. Surely it would make more sense for the council to bend its mind to some imaginative ways to augment these, rather than throw away the chance for the area to thrive and prosper in the modern world. Amongst my acquaintances, there is not one who does not support this runway extension, even those who live in the direct flight path. We don't carry placards and shout slogans, but we too have votes. Please take the sensible decision. Here is a statement from John Woodhead. I write to support this application without reservation. Whilst recognising human nature resistance to change of any sort, it seems to me that any disadvantages of this project are overwhelmingly outmatched by the advantages, which are 1. Providing a secure future for an otherwise threatened valuable regional airport by enabling the company to attract carriers operating longer routes. 2. Securing the future development of travel and business in a large area of central southern England. 3. Increasing local employment both in the airport itself and in allied services. And 4. Extending an already excellent service to both the local population and that of Portsmouth and the wider Southampton areas. For these reasons, I feel that granting unqualified permission here is a definite no-brainer. Here is a statement from Michelle Thornton. I wish to pledge my support and that of my students in the extension of Southampton Airport. I've been teaching travel and tourism at Eastleigh College for 10 years, and our students need the airport extension for jobs and work experience. The airport has supported the college for many years, taking students for work experience both land and airside. Employment opportunities at the airport have been offered in the past via Swissport, who pledge their support to our groups every year. If there's no growth at the airport and it becomes a private airport, there will be a huge deficit in opportunities for employment for all. Regarding a local airport, passengers using the cruise port will go elsewhere. Airports such as Bournemouth will benefit, and there will be a huge loss in revenue for the local economy. Please consider employment, revenue, and not just the worry about the noise of aircraft, which can be managed with greener, cleaner and quieter aircraft, plus managing times of departures and arrivals. Southampton Airport will never be on the scale of Gatwick or Heathrow. The education of children and young people is not affected by aircraft noise. My students want to work in the aviation industry or cruising industry, and I need to teach them units about sustainability, and they have questions. Why would the airport not want to expand now? I really hope the next meeting held discusses employment for now and the future for the next generation. Here is a statement from the Government of Guernsey. On behalf of the States of Guernsey, I write to express support for the planning application made by Southampton International Airport Limited to extend the runway at Southampton Airport. I understand that Eastleigh Borough Council is due to consider this matter on the 8th of April. The bailiwick of Guernsey has strong links with Southampton Airport. It is an important airport hub for business and leisure travellers both to and from the bailiwick of Guernsey. It provides an important direct connection to the southeast and the southwest of England. It also enables connections to flights and trains to other places in the UK, the common travel area and elsewhere in Europe. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Southampton Airport has served as a critical lifeline route, providing essential direct air connectivity between the UK and the bailiwick of Guernsey. There have been very few other flights to from the UK during the past year. During normal times, Alderney also has a direct air link to Southampton Airport. The bailiwick of Guernsey has important and direct links with Southampton Hospital, which provides medical care to residents on both an elective and emergency basis. Having a direct air link to Southampton Airport is essential for bailiwick residents to maintain access to specialist medical care at Southampton Hospital, which cannot be provided locally. The air link enables access to time-critical emergency care at Southampton Hospital. Both Guernsey and Alderney have arrangements in place for airport medical evacuations to Southampton Hospital via Southampton Airport. Southampton Airport is key for travel for residents of Guernsey, for business, leisure, family relationships and for access to medical care at Southampton Hospital. It also enables business and leisure travel to the bailiwick. Southampton Airport survival is critically important to Guernsey. Guernsey's government is pleased to note that the full Council Committee report of March 2021 includes references to various reasons why the air link to Southampton Airport is important to the Channel Islands, including that it is important as the lifeline to Channel Island residents and businesses, the critical medical route to the Channel Islands and for family connectivity. The States of Guernsey support Southampton Airport's planning application to extend its runway. The States understand that the runway extension is important to ensure the financial sustainability of the airport and to secure the airport's future. It is critical to the bailiwick of Guernsey that its air links to Southampton Airport continue for all the reasons outlined above. Here is a statement from Matt Purdue. I write today in support of the Southampton Airport runway being extended. I understand this just seems daft that this is being rejected if the airport was now to close and houses were to be built. That is more CO2 and emissions than just expanding the runway. Let's hope full council overturn this crazy decision. I have now sent an email to my local MP, as the leader of the council also recommended this to be approved, so it goes against democracy and what people elected the said councillors for. We could be the first place in the country to have electric planes if this went ahead. My autistic son is devastated that this has just happened, especially when Heathrow get a third runway. I don't think some against councillors took the mental health of people into account properly, and that autistic and other disabilities cannot cope with large airports, and Southampton Airport is great for these disabilities. It just seems daft that the against talked about emissions, but it's okay to then drive a 168.8 mile round trip to Gatwick instead, which causes alone per vehicle taking this round trip to emit 152,572 grams of CO2. My autistic son would be devastated if this airport was to close due to not being able to extend the runway. My son, who is 8, was given access to all areas in February 2020 as the then Flybe company and the airport manager had seen us watching aircraft landing and taking off normally on weekends pre-COVID-19. My son finds it relaxing and enjoys seeing the planes. If this local airport was to close due to not having the extension to the runway, this would cause extreme stress to him not being able to do something he enjoyed pre-COVID locally. Which leads on to my next point in the aspect of hidden disabilities. Is it right to discriminate against these younger children and adults who rely on using smaller airports to avoid having meltdowns? My autistic son would not cope at Gatwick or Heathrow as this is too big an airport for him. Is it right to stop the people with these hidden disabilities using small airports to enjoy holidays like the rest of the population? Is it right to take this opportunity away? Then my next point is the fact on jobs. At this time, where this country is recovering from COVID, this promise of the said new jobs isn't at a point alone to accept this application or getting Eastleigh and the local economy moving. I totally disagreed with the ELAC chair and the councillors that rejected as their points on the climate don't stack up in aspects of just passing the buck to another area. The fact climate was mentioned, isn't it fair to say cargo ships and ro-ro vessels that remain in port pollute more against climate change than just this small extension? I wish I could have talked live, however my mobile device wasn't capable of live talking, so I wish to thank you all for listening. Please make the only decision here to accept this proposal and extend Southampton Runway.
Here is a statement from Sue Smith. Please let this runway extension happen. Please save the jobs and livelihoods of people. This is only an extension, not a completely new extra runway. We have a railway station next to the airport, not many do. We don't want the stress and added expense of having to go to Gatwick and then flying back over where we live. We've flown from Southampton several times and I love our close to home airport. Please let this extension happen. Please save our airport and jobs. Here is a statement from Darren Marsh representing Leaders Lighting Limited. As a local businessman and regular traveller, I would like to add my comments on this matter. With customers based in the UK, Ireland and Europe, I have to travel frequently to these territories for meetings, etc. and find that air travel is the most economical and environmentally sustainable means of travel. Southampton Airport offers an easily accessible, travel-friendly location and reduces the need to travel many miles to the main London airports. This reduces the need for many car journeys and subsequent fuel used, emissions created to lengthen the journey and increase the negative environmental impact. As the UK embarks on our new global journey, having left the EU, South-based businesses need to have local access to these markets and the freedom to travel sustainably. Southampton Airport provides the ideal hub for this and eliminates the need to travel many needless miles in the car. Additionally, the benefits to the UK tourism and other business activities makes this a huge boost to the greater local economy. My sincere hope is that the decision to grant permission gains approval for the major economic and sustainability benefits that the region will see. Here is a statement from Chris Dunn. Let's get the extension to the runway done. The airport is needed to give the area much needed jobs. The infrastructure is already there with the railway next to it and good road links in place already, unlike Southampton on cruise ship changeover days. The extension will also cut down on widespread pollution as it's local and would cut out travelling to Heathrow and Gatwick by car. Southampton Council's objection raises pollution high on the list, but they don't mention anything about the pollution from the cruise ships who run their generators 24 hours a day using dirty fuel and vehicle pollution while sitting in traffic queues. There is more pollution being produced by building more and more homes in Eastleigh Council area with more than one vehicle per household. Ferret Road in the mornings is a prime example with queues lasting from early to late morning. How many objectors do the school run in their cars rather than walk little Johnny or Rachel to school and sit outside with engines running on the pickup, causing more pollution than a few aircraft a day would due to the engines being more eco-friendly these days? On a final note, the airport has been there longer, 1910, than some of the houses, so when you buy a house on the flight path, you know what to expect. I live next to the airport and I can honestly say I miss them, so do the right thing and pass this extension. Here is a statement from Geoffrey Petit. As a resident of Eastleigh, I wish to make it known that I fully support the planning application in respect of the small runway extension at Eastleigh Airport. I would ask you to respect the wishes of the large majority of people in Eastleigh who voted for you and who desire this application to be passed. By supporting the application, you will enable the borough to thrive and be a progressive neighbourhood, provide employment, income to the borough and be a centre of communication. The existing nearby railway and motorway links are an integral part of the airport's success over the years, and not to keep this important airport facility would be a travesty. If the application was to be on a greenfield site with no corresponding transport links, I can understand the desire not to proceed, but this is not the case. The airport has been a feature of our borough for decades, long before many of the housing areas erupted. We, the residents, desire the borough maintain a forward-thinking agenda and this short runway extension will allow the airport to flourish and support the whole geographic region, including Southampton. The wider Solent area needs this airport to enhance its trade and reputation. It is accepted that there are those who are against this agenda on the grounds of noise and climate issues. However, these issues are not truly reflective on this proposition, as the increase in aircraft movement is minimal, with the option of quieter aircraft being able to use a runway strip. Eastleigh Airport is not about to become a Heathrow. As for the climate issues, a strict control is to be implemented by the airport authorities, which will be overseen by the borough. Potential for far greater environmental damage to occur lies elsewhere in the development of One Horton Heath and increased cruise ship use of Southampton docks and the associated traffic pollution with both aspects. I would therefore ask you to support this application and allow the borough to be a leader in future transport initiatives and not to be dictated to by others outside our area who possibly have more selfish agenda. This is our area and we need this facility. Please support the wishes of the local people and pass this application. Here is a statement from David Starkey. According to EU sources, maritime transport accounted for about 2.5% of global greenhouse gases in 2015. This was very similar proportion to the equivalent global emissions from aviation. Prior to COVID, these proportions were growing, but aviation emissions were growing faster. However, the impact of COVID on global aviation has been profound. It has rebased emissions from aviation at a much lower level, and at the current time it is not clear how quickly aviation demand will be re-established. Secondly, during the last year, airlines eliminated a significant amount of capacity, focusing on retiring older, less fuel-efficient jets, particularly four-engine types. For example, BA withdrew its last 747, which only a few years ago was the mainstay of its long-haul fleet. Maritime transport, with its focus on freight, was impacted much less by the COVID response. The bottom line is that currently maritime transport is a more significant source of greenhouse gas emissions than aviation. The reason for invoking this comparison is that Eastleigh Borough Council supported the Local Enterprise Partnerships bid to establish a free port in the Solent area, which the Chancellor of the Exchequer confirmed in his recent budget. The Council's Cabinet unanimously approved this proposal, which contained a number of components, including development of the old railway works and the airport, both within the borough. Nevertheless, the nature of a free port is inherently bound up with international trade and international maritime transport. Therefore, it would seem contradictory, if not perverse, for the Council to refuse planning permission for the airport proposal, whilst at the same time supporting, through this free port initiative, an extension of maritime trades, now the primary and still growing source of greenhouse gas emissions for international transport. Aviation technology is evolving rapidly, and aircraft are becoming increasingly fuel efficient and quieter. Generally speaking, economies of scale apply. Ceteris paribus, twin-engine aircrafts are more fuel efficient per revenue passenger mile, the larger they are. The runway extension will allow for larger, more efficient aircraft to operate from Southampton Airport and increase its capacity, which is in accordance with government policy. AMPS 2018 1.41 2.10. Policy indicates that air travel should be convenient at lower fares and that domestic and international connectivity should be expanded. ANPS 2.10. Thus, the proposals are aligned with government aviation policy. Expansion will most likely increase job and travel opportunities for local residents. The airport has offered through a Section 106 agreement a comprehensive package of noise and alliterations, green initiatives, including measures to reduce carbon emissions, together with wider community support schemes. In my judgment, the environmental impact of the airport, with 3 million passengers per annum, the cap implied by the car parking vehicle limits, will be less than maintaining status quo runway operations. With the latter, the airport will be less obligated and much less likely to be able to afford ameliorating environmental measures. To reject the application on environmental grounds would suggest the council would be cutting off its nose to spite its face. Here is a statement from Alexander Cully, Reform UK candidate. In 1910, Southamptonian Edward Rowland Moon took off from North Stoneman Farm in his Moonbeam Mark II, starting an aviation tradition that has endured ever since. From witnessing the birth of the Spitfire, the saviour of our nation, to receiving Air Force One in 2019, Southampton Airport has continually punched above its weight to deliver for our city, our county and our country. Now is the time to write the next chapter in the Solent's aviation history. The demise of Flybe has cast a shadow over our borough. At a stroke, livelihoods were lost and the future of the airport itself was thrown into doubt. Some would not mourn the loss of the airport, arguing that this would improve the local environment and help tackle climate change. However, one is not going to achieve environmental protection through economic destruction. What we need is a balance. Southampton Airport has consistently strived to achieve a balance in its operations. After all, its efforts to reduce its carbon footprint was a key factor in it being recognised as Airport of the Year by the European Regional Airlines Association in 2016. In the current proposal, Southampton Airport has committed to a range of measures to help mitigate any adverse impacts on the local community. Many residents will be justifiably concerned about increased emissions of nitrogen oxides or particulate matter if Southampton Airport attracts more road transport as a result of offering more routes. Southampton's airport proposed cap on vehicle numbers demonstrates that it has listened to these concerns. Furthermore, it should not be forgotten that the sale of new petrol and diesel cars in the UK is set to end by 2030. The recent rollout of electric charging points in Eastleigh Town Centre is a window into our future. I am therefore urging councillors to back Southampton Airport's plans. Freedom yesterday, Freeport today. Help Southampton Airport and the region reach new heights. Here is a statement from Clive Mansell. I would like to add my support to the proposed runway extension. I believe that any objections to the proposed are short-sighted and massively outweighed by the potential benefits to Eastleigh and Southampton in particular. As far as the noise issue is concerned, Dash 8 and Embraer E195 were not quiet on landing and had relatively shallow flight path on takeoff. Other jets climb quicker and aircraft noise continues to reduce as technical developments take place. The footprint of the M27-M3 motorways create constant high levels of noise over a larger area in the vicinity already. Passenger numbers could initially be limited to what is considered to be an acceptable number and takeoff times and numbers of actual flights constantly under review. The benefits of a viable local airport could be enormous to the Eastleigh economy. The town itself is undergoing rejuvenation in terms of the quality of new housing and the benefit of greater employment and visitor numbers. With the help of Council Vision, airport improvements could kickstart city centre development and the hospitality and retail industry in particular. Innovations such as the Steamtown pub and brewery and the housing development rising above Lee Road recreation ground are exciting quality additions already. Eastleigh could become an attractive destination for sport and all other forms of leisure and business, with its close links to Southampton, the cruise industry and ferry links to the continent. In my opinion, there are these and other potential benefits which far outweigh any possible objections. Here is a statement from Claire Marsh. I'm writing in support of the extension to the runway at Southampton Airport. This is an essential business for Southampton as a city. I have frequently used the airport for both business and leisure flights since moving to Southampton in 1996. I can think of nothing worse than having to travel up the M3, M25 to access an airport to access flights. This will increase the number of cars on the already congested roads and increase the pollution. Whilst I can understand the argument for emissions and pollution from aircraft, by not improving this runway extension, the pollution and emissions will still be there, but just from the car instead. This is a great opportunity for our airport to flourish and put Southampton on the map. With all the house building in the area and increase in population, do we really want to lose our airport services to London? As a resident in Ocean Village, we were directly on the flight path of Flybe planes as they navigated their descent along the Itchen River. What a magnificent sight to see. I was not troubled by the noise at all. I think also the fact that there were flight restrictions at night was a great innovation in protecting the residents from noise at night. There were very few occasions when planes were delayed and flew over later than the 10:30 curfew. Please approve this application to extend the runway. As a resident of Southampton, it has my full support. Here is a statement from Jason Whitaker. I have been an Eastleigh resident for my 70 years on this planet and have hence grown up with the airport since the 1950s. I have seen its many ups and downs over the years and at times its recovery from various economic and political pressures. However, the current situation that we find ourselves in provides a greater challenge to our airport than anything in my living memory. Even without the COVID-19 situation, the ongoing viability of our airport was questionable, and with the demise of Flybe, this has become an even greater challenge. The runway extension of 164 metres, which is the starter strip, will provide the ability to make the current generation of aircraft more commercially viable by ensuring that they can take full payloads to the destinations that could be served from the airport. It has always been the case that flights from Southampton to Mallorca, Faro, Bergamo, etc. have always had payload restrictions and sometimes resulting in flights routing via Bournemouth to refuel. The starter strip extension will negate this restriction. On the subject of the extension being a starter strip, it should be noted that due to the current obstacle clearance limit, it does not extend the length of the runway available for landing aircraft. The landing threshold will remain in the same place. When considering noise pollution and carbon emissions, there are a couple of positives that I'd like to highlight. One, a full aircraft reduces the CO2 emissions per passenger for any given flight compared to a flight with restricted payload. Two, every new generation of aircraft becomes quieter and more fuel efficient. For example, when comparing the latest generation of the Airbus A320 with its predecessor, the noise footprint is reduced by 50% and fuel burn by 20%. It is also very unlikely that a 180-seat plus aircraft would be used on a daily scheduled basis, as the market is currently not there to support that size of operation. Taking another angle on pollution and CO2 emissions, let's consider travel to and from the airport. If the airport were to be no longer sustainable, the 2 million or so passengers that it handles would need to travel to and from other airports to connect with their flights. So not only have you got the same aircraft emissions at the airport of departure, you also have the emissions of travel to and from the other airport. The primary consideration, of course, is the huge economic benefit that the airport brings to the local economy through jobs at the airport, ancillary jobs, buses, taxi, food outlets, hotels, etc. In conclusion, I would please ask that you support the application. Here is a statement from George Burkett. This is my second submission in support of the airport extension. The disappointment at the result of the Planning Committee's decision on the airport extension has raised more statements and letters of support. The committee, although well educated, were not able to distinguish the importance of this project to the people of Eastleigh and surrounding areas. The airport is the largest employee in the area after the demise of Ford, the railway construction and some time back Kipling. The majority of those responding in support, some 60%, were in favour of the extension, realising that it would be an integral part of financial and employment future for Eastleigh. The arrival of the future Freeport status would prosper further from having a local air hub to complement the road and sea access to the area. The Channel Islands are a good customer for the airport on a business and tourist level. The main option for them to use Bournemouth is not viable due to its poor access to any main transport routes. The future advances in fuel and aero engine technology will negate to a great extent the level of noise and air pollution by the time the extension is up and running. The airport has been a good supporter of Eastleigh and the surrounding area and was there many years before the vast majority of objectors. The airport has been encroached upon by the very public now complaining. There is no additional land required as the extension lies within the airport boundaries. Eastleigh councillors are voted in to reflect the views of the local residents. 60% of respondents were in favour of the extension. That's a huge majority in political terms, and the council are urged to support the extension and represent the constituents who overwhelmingly support it.
Here is a statement from Catherine O'Sullivan. Firstly, I would like to say that although it is Eastleigh Council who have the deciding say on this, it affects the wider region about the airport, so the councillors should consider what is best for the region as a whole and the views of all residents in the area. I support the proposed extension for the following reasons. Southampton Airport is a brilliant asset to the area and is very well positioned with motorway and rail links close by. The airport is convenient to get to, and being small provides a much better passenger experience than the big airports. By enabling flights to further destinations, especially many popular holiday destinations in the Mediterranean and beyond, more local people will want to use the airport. This will provide employment and careers in aviation as well as in services supplying the airport. Preventing the extension will not stop people from travelling. They will just travel via Heathrow and Gatwick instead, causing longer polluting car journeys and traffic loading onto the roads. Modern aircraft are becoming quieter and more fuel efficient all the time. The noise footprint from the airport is not great, and the hours of operation will be tightly controlled. I live in Warsash, on the edge of the airport zone, and was overflown frequently while Flybe were operating. It was in no way intrusive or troublesome. I really hope the extension will be approved so that people living in the south can continue to benefit from the airport for years to come. Here is a statement from Pete Halliday. Please vote in favour of the runway extension at Southampton Airport. This is essential for local business, as well as the connectivity of the area. Thank you. Here is a statement from W.J. Abel on behalf of the States of Alderney. Whilst we understand the challenges facing the Borough Council in considering this application, the States of Alderney would again like to express our strong support for the planning application from Southampton International Airport Limited for development of the airport site. The long-term viability of Southampton Airport is of immense importance to the Channel Islands and to Alderney in particular. It is understood that should planning approval not be granted, the airport believes its future trading position would be in jeopardy, potentially leading to its closure, a critical loss to Alderney's integrated transport strategy. While there are other airports along the south coast of England with which Alderney and other Channel Islands could establish air transport connectivity, history alone has shown that these airports have never proved successful in terms of passenger convenience and acceptability. The airport is considered by Alderney as a lifeline in terms of access to essential medical facilities in Southampton and is an economic enabler and contributes significantly to the island's social well-being, with just under 50% of all Alderney passenger movements being through Southampton Airport. While the Alderney-Southampton passenger numbers are modest as compared with those from Jersey and Guernsey, the economic contribution that these combined numbers bring via the airport to the Borough of Eastleigh and to neighbouring districts should be a significant factor in the determination of the application. We would urge you to take the critical position that a thriving and developing Southampton Airport has on Alderney into your considerations in supporting this planning application. Here is a statement from Colin Pope. I wrote to the councillors on the local area committee, setting out in a series of 10 points my reasons why I believe Southampton Airport's plan for a modest but necessary runway extension should be approved. I was very disappointed when I learned that the committee had voted 5 votes to 3 to reject the airport's planning application. Quoting from the BBC's report of the meeting, one of the councillors stated, "We are not closing the airport." Was that an attempt to absolve themselves of the likely economic consequences of their decision? I believe that the councillors will face responsibility for closure if they reject the application, and the airport's owners then conclude that without the runway extension, Southampton Airport is no longer a viable business in their airports group. The airport has put together a business plan for the future, which embraces the reality that it needs to attract airlines flying larger aircraft in common usage with the UK and Europe. These are not just the aircraft suited to short runways that have been used at the SOU in the past. Southampton became almost wholly dependent on Flybe and its turboprop fleet, but that airline was for years seldom profitable and became insolvent. Its business model simply didn't work. For the future, the airport cannot be constrained to just these types of aircraft. It needs to be able to use some smaller Airbus and Boeing aircraft able to operate with full passenger loads from Southampton International from an extended runway. This is in the interests of safety, profitability, and the lowest environmental impact per passenger carried. Through recent design improvements and newer engines, these aircraft have a lower noise footprint and are more fuel efficient than older models. There are reports, see the Times, 31st of March 2021, of the financial backing by BA of an Anglo-American business aiming to put passenger aircraft fueled by hydrogen into service over the next 3 to 10 years. A small aircraft has already tested the concept successfully. They will have a range of 500 miles and produce just water vapour as emissions. Do councillors have the vision to look ahead? Apart from the current carbon offsetting, these future developments need surely to be considered seriously. Aviation seems to have been singled out as a major polluter in popular opinion, but the facts are that the industry produces 2% of global emissions, whereas cows and livestock, for example, produce 9 times as much at 18%. There is a need for a balance. Now more than ever, Eastleigh, and importantly the wider region, need to keep its modern airport for the benefit of the regional economy and jobs. It should be permitted to operate efficiently and viably, whilst at the same time recognising its responsibilities to local residents and the environment. Should the full council on April 8th again vote against the airport runway's extension, plans in opposition to officers, recommendations and majority support from businesses and people locally, it must be clearly recognised where responsibility for closure. If it comes to that, will lie. Here is a statement from Victor Taylor. Southampton is a world-renowned port of travel with upwards of 10 cruise ship departures on a daily basis during the summer months. This extension will give the City of Southampton the ability to land bigger aircraft and directly transport cruise ship passengers to the Port of Southampton by train almost seamlessly. The runway extension should be granted for this reason alone. However, considering the large areas of deprivation we have within Southampton, we have a real opportunity to create jobs and improve the economy. You don't need to tell me that this extension will not only create jobs at the airport itself, but the ripple effect on increased demand for accommodation, transport, retail and distribution will only benefit the job market. I live in the direct flight path for Southampton and do not suffer the noise that is produced by the airport. My family run a hospitality business in the centre of Southampton that, like many, fail due to the effect of COVID-19 has on pub and the travel industry. I strongly believe that failure to extend the runway will cause such a detrimental impact to the city's industry and culture, and I urge you to consider the evidential positive impact that the extension will have on the city, because without it, I can see depravity increase and irreparable damage to local businesses, as well as the total loss of the airport itself. Here is a statement from Matthew Ricard. Firstly, I myself am very proud to be a regular user of the airport and have been so for the past 30 or more years. I am proud of the airport's rich history, and I am now also very proud and impressed with the management who work closely with the local community on many things, including noise abatement, flight path tracking, air quality, environmental issues, carbon footprint management and local events. Like all UK aviation, the airport is committed to aviation net zero, which is to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. So we all know the facts. This proposed lengthening of the runway is already within the airport-owned land, and the lengthening will ensure that the starter strip exists at one end of the runway to allow aircraft which already use the airport are given the opportunity to fly more efficiently to their destination without the current restrictions imposed on them. It is not airport expansion. There is not room for that at this airfield. It is simply improving an existing model. Please again note that the aircraft that use the runway already and have done so for a long time are the largest that can ever use this runway. Nothing bigger is possible, despite what the protesters say. Weather conditions have a crucial say in how these aircraft use the runway, such as less fuel and possibly empty seats to allow longer takeoff run or room to abort takeoff. So please note that a starter strip helps these aircraft to be operated more efficiently. A majority of local residents in Eastleigh want the airport to survive for the sake of the economy in our region and the creation of jobs and maintaining connectivity. With the Solent Freeport scheme on its way for Southampton, alongside local businesses and leisure needs, This airport, now more than ever, must be supported and trusted as a key community player and vital to our economy. I truly believe that the promises that have been made by the airport management, including a vast reduction in annual flights, are absolutely achievable. With this improvement, why operate 2 or 3 flights with restricted fuel and passenger loads when one flight on a small, modern, eco-friendly aircraft with seats full and the necessary fuel load will do the trick? The airport is now ready and willing to share some of the environmental and operational decision making with the local authority. Fantastic, I say. I live right under the flight path in Bitton Park, and the noise of the aircraft is very short-lived. And I don't believe that any aircraft that I see using this wonderful airport is any more of a pollutant than the cars, vans, trucks and trains that thunder around us all day and night. Road noise, train, shipping and car pollutants should not be swept aside in society's current eco-war. With this successful regional airport up and running once again, we won't see hordes of people driving to use London airports, and it's true that the convenience and quickness of checking in and ease of travel that this airport is well known for will return, and it will run at the same successful levels that it did pre-COVID. It would be unthinkable to lose this incredible service. The job losses and impact on businesses and travel would take years to overcome, and we wouldn't be the same Eastleigh or Southampton ever again. Here is a statement from Jan Halliday. I am a resident of the Borough and an ex-employee of Southampton Airport. I worked there for over 20 years and saw with my own eyes the prosperity and growth that investment in the airport brought to the region. Please help the Borough to continue to prosper by supporting the growth plans of the airport, which includes stringent environmental mitigation policies. Here is a statement from Terry Pragnell. I am writing to express my support to the expansion of Southampton Airport runway. I believe it is essential to grant permission for this to go ahead for the local economy and for the airport. The newer planes that would be able to use the longer runway will be quieter and more efficient. The users of the airport will be reducing travel by not having to go to London Airport, but able to use more local transport links to get to their final destination. Without the runway expansion, I suspect that more airlines will put out of the airport and the airport will no longer be viable. Here is a statement from James Pritchard. I recognise the environmental concerns raised about the runway extension and welcome Councillor Campbell's closing remarks at the debate on the 26th of March about playing our part and showing leadership. However, we cannot make the assumption that the local population will follow the lead and choose to fly less should the runway extension not be granted. In the absence of a coordinated national aviation strategy, there is a real risk that voting against the extension will be counterproductive overall, being detrimental to the environment as well as to the economy. The Council should take note of EasyJet's recent announcement to commence flights from Bournemouth to Belfast, impossible by rail, and Edinburgh, largely impractical by rail. Without the runway extension, such key connections will become comparatively unavailable from Southampton, and reasonable consolidation of airport capacity on the south coast, desirable from an environmental perspective, would surely look to Bournemouth in the future. Unlike Bournemouth Airport, Southampton Airport is currently directly served by an electrified railway with good links across the region. Southampton Airport also has decent connectivity to the Isle of Wight without requiring a car. We should capitalise on these important benefits rather than risk them under the guise of being seen to be doing the right thing. Some of Southampton's rail links could be better It is shameful that Manchester was one of the first Flybe links to be picked up by other airlines, but preventing the extension of the runway is not going to encourage modal shift to rail, especially if one of the bigger airlines also eyes up Bournemouth to Manchester. Instead, the extension of the runway should justify, maybe even mandate, improvements to the railway service to further improve sustainable connectivity for the region, benefiting everyone, not just airport users. I would also like to make an observation about increased noise, which I recognise as a real concern living just north of the city centre. I do sometimes hear departures from the airport, and I would expect this to be more noticeable if the runway extension were granted. What has been more noticeable recently, however, is the noise from jets heading in and out of Bournemouth. They have been able to take advantage of reduced restrictions in Solent airspace while Southampton has been quieter during lockdown, and fly low overhead parts of the city. True environmental leadership in this case would insist on responsible use of a longer runway, while still retaining important connectivity and reducing the need for new routes from Bournemouth. It would seek to build on what we already have, including the rail links, and insist on world-leading sustainable mobility for airline passengers, airport workers, and the local population. It would not intentionally or otherwise pass the buck to our friends on the edge of the New Forest National Park. Here is a statement from Erwin Driver. I should like to support the proposed plans for Southampton Airport. Firstly, the airport creates local jobs and increased income for the area, so the busier it is, the greater the number of jobs and income generated for the local area will be. Southampton and the surrounding areas would undoubtedly benefit financially from the increased business. I live near to the airport, so will be directly affected by the increased activity in larger aeroplanes. I accept this as a consequence of the survival and success of our local airport. The convenience of being able to fly from Southampton to a wide range of destinations far outweighs the impact of increased activity. Those objecting to the runway extension may feel that they are protecting the environment. However, their objections are based on a narrow and probably ill-informed view of the aircraft industry. The future for aircraft is to become carbon neutral. For example, Airbus has revealed a fleet of zero-emission planes, which are primarily powered by hydrogen fuel and are carbon neutral. My son-in-law is the chief engineer at the ATI Aerospace Technology Institute, working on the Fly Zero project, the vision of which is for the UK to realise zero carbon emission commercial flight by the end of the decade. Furthermore, electric aircraft are being developed by a range of leading manufacturers. For example, Airbus has developed the world's first all-electric 4-engine aircraft and has made significant progress in the electrification of flight. Not only will there be no negative impact on the environment by aircraft in the very near future, there will also be no noise. I urge those making this crucial decision to look to the future. Do not be constrained by the immediate narrow concerns of the objections, but look ahead to a clean, prosperous local area, supporting and being supported by a thriving airport. Allowing the extension to the runway will guarantee the future of the airport. Refusing it will be its death knell.
Here is a statement from Nicholas Fulford. I would like to express my full support for the runway extension application at Southampton Airport. I live in the Portsmouth St Denis area of Southampton, so I'm fairly close to the flight path when aircraft land on runway 2 from the south or take off from runway 20 from the north. I feel that my views should be listened to, as I will be affected by any changes at the airport more than many residents in the borough of Eastleigh itself. As the planning authority for the runway extension application, you have a huge responsibility to do the right thing and approve the application, not just on behalf of Eastleigh Borough Council residents, but for the residents in the whole South Hampshire, East Dorset and West Sussex region, stretching from Poole in the west to Chichester in the east and Basingstoke, Winchester to the north. Southampton is a key strategic economic asset for the whole region due to its central location within the region at the junction of the M3 and M27 motorways and its fantastic rail and bus links. I personally always like to use public transport when travelling to the airport as a passenger, either by using the regular U1 bus service or by train from St Denis Station, so minimising my carbon usage. If Southampton Airport was to close, I would have no local airport to fly from and will be forced to use one of the London airports, thereby increasing my carbon usage. Some people I've heard suggest that Bournemouth Airport is the viable alternative for this region. This is just not true at all, as the airport at Herne has practically no public transport links at all and is right at the western extremity of the region. And once you get to the west of Poole, the population is very sparse. Indeed, if you are at Poole, Bournemouth or Christchurch railway stations, it's much easier and quicker to get to Southampton Airport than Bournemouth Airport. If Southampton Airport closed, the vital regional air services that were mostly served in the recent past by the Flybe network would certainly not be replicated at Bournemouth Airport. This has been proved by the fact that all the similar routes in the past have been started at Bournemouth, have failed to be a success and have been very short-lived. Please also listen to the views of the many residents in the Southampton and Eastleigh area that are directly employed at the airport and are also indirectly linked or supported by the airport's existence and success. Many current and future non-aviation jobs would also be lost in the region if the airport was to close, as one of the key factors considered by many potential UK or overseas investors is the local availability of regional and international air services for connectivity. By all means, listen to the views expressed by the noisy minority that protest against the airport runway extension outside the council offices, but please also listen to the views of what is almost certainly the silent majority who I believe support the runway extension proposal. Here is a statement from Rita and Andy Carton. We write in support of the Southampton Airport expansion application. Living under the flight path of Southampton Airport, we've never found aircraft noise to be a problem. The airport is a local amenity that provides employment and local economic benefits. In order to remain viable, it needs to be able to keep up with the demands of the expanding local community. New housing is springing up all around the local area. There is good access to the airport, being very near the M27 and M3 motorways and its own train station with frequent services. The airport enables all residents in the south to fly without having to drive up to London. This saves stress and time in 4 ways. 1, shorter check-in times. 2, not having to travel so far. 3, not having to allow extra time just in case the M3 is blocked. And 4, less traffic congestion. It also benefits the tourist and cruise industries. The latter is being expanded locally by allowing easy access from further in the UK and overseas. Furthermore, our response to the results of the Eastleigh Local Area Committee meeting on the 25th and 26th of March 2021, read the Southampton Airport expansion application is as follows. In light of A, the overwhelming support of those people living local to the airport whom this directly affects, and B, the Planning Committee having found in favour of the expansion, it would appear this was ignored by the decision of the Eastleigh Local Area Committee. What happened to democracy? What have the views of Bournemouth Airport got to do with it? It would appear they only have their own business self-interest at heart. Southampton City Council are also not in favour. We point out the airport is not actually in Southampton but in Eastleigh. Thank you for listening. Here is a statement from Richard Goodwin. I wholeheartedly support the planning application for a car park extension and runway starter extension. Operationally, the aircraft types that have frequently been mentioned already can and do operate to and from the airport, but infrequently. This is because in order to operate safely due to terrain and runway restrictions, they must operate at reduced loads and or short sectors, something which is usually more efficient in smaller aircraft. Because these aircraft already operate, the simplest way to understand the potential effect of the runway extension is to imagine yourself standing at the end of the runway when an aircraft departs and try to guess how full it is and where it is going. It's not possible because the difference is not obvious to those on the ground. The aircraft can go fuller and further. It makes the routes more economically viable and more efficient per seat environmentally. The improvements may mean that those types of aircraft which are lower medium jets and not heavy jets are able to operate more frequently from the airport. However, this does not mean that every single aircraft movement will be a medium-sized jet. The airport terminal and aircraft parking infrastructure make that impossible. The bigger the aircraft at Southampton, the more spread out the movements will have to be. There are other operators and aircraft types operating already, so it's not like you'll have 60 EasyJet departures a day. The newer engines on Airbus and Boeing aircraft are incredibly quiet. I'd argue they are quieter on the A320neo than most turboprop aircraft. If the runway extension is not approved, there will be less need to plough the millions of pounds that are required into modernising the airspace structure, which could save incredible amounts of emissions and greatly reduce the noise footprint of the airport. The passenger cap could actually reduce airport movements. If larger airports operate, fewer flights will be required to carry a certain number of passengers. As a region, the airport is iconic. It provides so many jobs and supports so many businesses directly and indirectly. The airport cannot be left to limp along or worse, rot. A region without an airport will fall behind. People and businesses need convenience, and the roads are clogged enough without putting holidaymakers on them as well. Imagine 1 million people per year trying to get to Bournemouth Airport or Heathrow or Gatwick. Has any research been done to the effect on house prices, local businesses, and the actual knock-on effect if the airport were to cease trading? The last 15 months shows how close the airport must be to the edge. To lose or hinder the airport now is a vote of no confidence in the entire region, while support would be a boost to industry, job security and morale. The environmental issue is incredibly important, but to target the airport, who have a realistic carbon neutral plan, and risk increasing road journeys and land turned into houses and offices makes no sense. We must find a balance between doing more for the environment day to day and being able to continue to invest in our essential industries and infrastructure, particularly those like aviation, which is doing everything possible to find answers to becoming carbon neutral. Here is a statement from Brad Roynan. As a former Chief Executive of both Southampton and East Hampshire councils, I have had dealings with Eastleigh Borough and Southampton Airport for many years. In this challenging time, Eastleigh Borough Council is now about to make a critical decision on the airport runway, which will have ramifications for the whole Solent area. The fact is that the Solent region, with a population of over 1.25 million and a major urban area in its own right, relies on the airport to connect to the rest of the UK and with a number of European destinations. This is necessary for economic and social reasons, and alternatives are not timely. For example, it takes 7 hours to get to Edinburgh by train via London, whereas by air the journey takes 1.5 hours. The airport is a vital connector for the Solent region, yet with a length of 1,723 metres, its runway is short compared to others. Even with another 164 metres, Southampton's runway at 1,887 metres will be shorter than most other commercial airports. Southampton Airport can never be a large airport. However, the proposed runway extension is potentially key because it could facilitate the airport's long-term viability. Given the challenge of recovery following the demise of Flybe, and in the aviation industry more generally in a post-COVID setting, this takes on even more significance. Against this are concerns over environmental factors, especially emissions, for which aviation accounts for some 6% overall. Of course, Southampton Airport, the 19th largest in the UK, with some 36,473 flights, only accounts for 1.2% of air traffic in the UK, according to 2019 data. So it is not a major player, but the environmental dimension has to be a factor in the debate. That being said, against a base of 2 million passengers, the extension could lead to a reduced number of flights by accommodating larger planes. Looking more widely, the aviation industry is committed to being carbon neutral by 2050 and, as I understand it, Southampton Airport is a participant in the Sustainable Aviation Initiative. Opportunities are already arising, such as with new fuels, possibly including hydrogen in coming years. This impetus has been reinforced by recent announcements by Airbus to build hydrogen-powered planes and by Aura Aero to build a 19-seat electric plane. It would be perverse to ignore this progress. Economically, prior to the COVID pandemic, the airport sustained some 1,000 jobs directly and impacted upon the wider community by an estimated £160 million per annum. In this context, the airport serves as a key enabler to provide other businesses and organisations with internal UK and short-distance European links. The pandemic has had a dramatic effect on the aviation industry, and recovery will be a matter of years in the making. In that regard, the airport, as a direct and indirect part of the economic infrastructure, will still be important and will also be elemental to Solent LEP's recent bid for the planned Solent Freeport. So Eastleigh Council has to balance all factors and reach a conclusion on the runway extension that will impact upon the Solent region. In this, one significant development has been the offer to cap the capacity of the airport to 3 million passengers. This seems to be a game changer in that it gives the Borough Council a strong hand in making sure that the airport delivers on the aims of the Sustainable Aviation Initiative while protecting the economic benefits of the airport. The alternative of not extending the runway, which has been an issue over all the years that I've had dealings with the airport, could be to jeopardise its viability. The reality is the length of the runway is short, and that issue is not just a today matter. It has been a long-standing concern of previous operators too. Should the airport fail, travel by air will not diminish. Solent travellers will go elsewhere. Indeed, this is evident in the stance that Bournemouth Airport has taken in objecting to the runway extension. Taking all this together, I would encourage Eastleigh Borough Council to approve the airport's application to extend the runway on the basis that the 3 million passenger cap can be translated into meaningful conditions. Here is a statement from Mark Pearce. I'm completely baffled why the extension was denied at the previous planning meeting. As a local resident, business owner and supporter of our planet, I'm fully in support of the extension to the runway. In construction terms, the extension does not affect any boundaries or encroach onto any airport land. My business, Abbey Vehicle Rental, relies on 80% of its work from the Channel Islands, and through this airport, without this essential transport link in our area, I and many other businesses will simply close. With COVID wiping out so many local businesses, surely the support of the extension is a much needed boost to area economy and a lifeline to save and help the recovery of many businesses, services and staff that rely on the airport for income stream. Also, this is a vital link between the Channel Islands and, more importantly, it uses our local medical facilities, with the General Hospital being the most used, which gains financially from the Channel Islands. Flying further afield, especially when it's an emergency, could cause critical time delays, especially with Alderney, and could mean the difference between life and death. As a local resident, to have an international airport on your doorstep is not only convenient, but also a proud asset for any area to have. Many people use this hub for transportation, and it's a massive beneficial alternative to the next best hubs in and around London. As a person concerned about the environment, for the airport to go will have a much worse impact. Yes, if the extension goes ahead, there's an obvious increase in planes, fuel and noise, but imagine the alternative. Developed land with many thousands of homes, resulting in many thousands of cars now on our local roads, more crime in a condensed area, and more of everything bad that a new massive housing development brings. With the airport gone, we now have a massive catchment area travelling to other UK airports to catch their flights. More cars up and down the motorway, more emissions, more chance of accidents, more road repairs due to overusage, more coach and train movements, busier UK airports, more chance of terror attacks. The list is endless, with hundreds of possible negative scenarios. Environmentally, we haven't reduced flights. We just improved the revenue for all the other airports and the businesses and staff who will benefit from them for work. We have a local airport which employs thousands of people. We have an airport relied upon by thousands of businesses. Take it away and the domino effect will commence. It affects so many more. As an example, let's take a local taxi driver. The taxi no longer has the work. The local petrol station no longer has the fuel cell. The mechanic no longer has the annual repair income from that car. The corner shop for his lunch loses out. The accountant, the tax man. It's the same with any business that receives an income based on that airport. We need the airport for work, employment, medical needs and travel. As modern planes develop, so will the carbon footprints and noise reduction. But however green the opposition is, the alternative is far worse. The impact on jobs is far worse, and the impact on local, national and international businesses that profit from the airport will suffer. You can make a plane quieter, you can improve its carbon footprint. You can't replace jobs and work if the airport goes. And in fact, if the airport goes, the new residents living in the houses now built on its land will also need jobs. So in theory, you're doubling the problem. No doubt everyone here or listening has used this airport. Convenient, isn't it? It's such a pleasure to have a great local facility right on our doorstep. Agreed? So don't go complaining when your 40-minute check-in, 10 minutes down the road now turns into a 3-hour commute to Stansted, 2.5-hour check-in, followed by the returning 1.5-hour bag reclaim and 3-hour commute back home. Not quite so convenient anymore, is it? And for what? 164 metres? Are you sure you want to deny it again? The plane is still in the air, it just flies somewhere else. More people will benefit from the extension, and as the airport grows, many more will benefit as jobs increase and local businesses reap the rewards from the many visitors or travellers, whether that's our local hotels, car hire companies, taxis, coach and bus operators, food and beverage outlets, local attractions, or our massive cruise industry. Everything we provide or take away has a huge impact, so let's not remove something that's so important and needed, which provides meals on family tables for so many people, especially when our current world is in recovery and finances and work are quite frankly shot to bits. To be completely honest, I'm totally baffled why anyone in their right logical mind would even think to oppose this. The impact outweighs the benefit tenfold. Why would you gift an income stream outside our area to all the other airports and the businesses that serve them? And that concludes the recorded written statements in support of the application, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, and may I thank all the members of the public who have put in submissions speaking in favour of the application as well. I know it's quite late, but I will ask Andy, do you have any points of clarification or comments, please, Andy?
You're not going to believe it, but I've just very quickly, yeah, I do.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, sorry, I won't keep you long. It's just two very quick points. There was on both objections and supporters have made reference to the ELAC decision to refuse the scheme. Just for process, it wasn't refused, it was a decision not to support the recommendation, so there weren't actual reasons given for refusal. And secondly, again, both sides, the fors and against, have made reference to the future survival or not of the airport, and I think we made it very clear at the start that there is a break-even point and alternative funding would need to be considered, and as part of the planning application process we're not considering whether the airport survives or not, but it was just clarifying those 2 points, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy, for that important clarification. As I previously mentioned, given the lateness of the hour, the submission from the applicant Southampton International Airport we will actually hear tomorrow, but looking at the time it seems it will be today. That will be followed by questions from councillors, and councillors will then debate the application. So I would just like to thank everyone for their submissions and also all the emails that members of the public have sent to us as councillors. Councillors, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I would also like to thank our officers for all your support today. So at this point, I am going to adjourn the meeting, and it will recommence at 6 p.m. on Friday, the 9th of April, which I believe is today. So may I wish you a very good night, or may I say a very good morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Cynthia.